Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise, join us in the pledge. Mr. Fresco.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to those in the audience here and those viewing us at home. Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. This is our first meeting post 9/11. We didn't have an opportunity to take a moment of silence on that date. I'd like for us to please join me in a moment of silence for all those victims from 9/11. Thank you. Anyone here for public comment? Go to item 4, water quality update. Mark, are you prepared to speak regarding the water quality issue?
I'm Mark Clark, the water superintendent here in North Reading. As probably all of you know, as the water department, we're required to sample for a number of different things in the water. We test for some chemical constituents that may be in the water. We test for even radioactive materials like radon in the water. We also test for bacteria in the drinking water. We typically are required to test for 21 coliform, it's called coliform samples per month. And what the regulations say that no more than 5% of those total coliforms may be positive in any given month. So we collect 21 samples in a typical month. 5% of 20 would be one positive sample. So if we have any more than one positive sample, we can be in violation of what's called the total coliform rule. For the month of August, we sampled on August 13th, August 20th, and August 27th. We typically collect 7 samples per week, or 3 times a month. Mr. Carnevale's distributed a map showing you those 7 locations. Month of August, we had no positive total coliform. I've worked here 19 years. We've never had a problem with the bacteria requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Last Tuesday on September 10th, we collected our normal 7 distribution system samples. On September 11th, we received notification from the lab up in Andover that 4 of the samples were positive for total coliform. And those sites, as you see on the map, were the high school, the Hood School, our Swan Pond water tank, and the Thompson Country Club. The other 3 sites we sample are Temple Oil up on Main Street, up on North Main Street. We sample down at CVS on the other end of Main Street, and we sample at the Hillview Country Club. They're distributed across the town like that in order to get a good distribution of the entire town. If you're familiar with the water department, all our sources plus the water we pull from Andover are all around the northwest corner of town. And what you'll see is the sample sites closest to our sources all came up negative for bacteria. The sites further out on the distribution system came up positive for total coliform. And I say up front, this is not the type of problem that results in a boil order. Once or twice a summer you hear about towns that have instituted a boil order, and it's typically because of some type of bacterial contamination of their water distribution system. This is not what this is. If we have positive samples for total coliform, we have to test for what's called fecal coliform, or E. coli, which is more an indication of some kind of a waste has gotten into the drinking water. That's not the case here. This is a background bacteria. What the requirements say is if we're going to be over 5% of the samples positive for a month, we have 30 days after the end of the month to do public notification. And I can just read you real quick what the public notification will say for this month. It'll say, basically give you a little background that we can't exceed more than 5%. What should I do to the residents? You do not need to boil your water or take other corrective actions. However, if you have a specific health concern, consult your doctors. It does have a note about persons with severely compromised immune systems. That's in every public notification. What does this mean? This is not an emergency. If it had been, you would have been notified immediately. Coliform bacteria are generally not harmful in themselves. They're naturally present in the environment and are used as an indicator that other potentially harmful bacteria may be present. And it goes on a little bit. But again, we test for these other bacteria if we come up positive. We actually test all the time. All 21 samples we test a month are tested for the more serious bacteria. What happens when we collect positive samples, it triggers that we have to go to all of our sources and take a sample for what's called enterococcus. We also have to go back to the site that was positive and take another repeat sample there, and then we also have to sample an upstream and a downstream site at the same time. So we got notification on Wednesday that we had those 4 positive. Our first reaction was we went to our water treatment plants and increased the chlorine level leaving the water treatment plants. Chlorine will kill total coliform. What we found in our sampling is the chlorine on the ends of our system is very low, and so we did that. We raised the chlorine level leaving our water treatment plants. We actually went to the 3 water towers. We climbed the water towers, just inspected them. There's a hatch on the top of the water tower that's locked. It should be closed and locked. We found all the hatches were closed and locked. The hatches have a vent on the top because as the water goes up and down, you have to let air in and out. The vent has a bird screen on it, so no bird can get in. You know, you do hear the horror stories that towns that have these fecal contamination, you know, they drain their tank and find a dead bird. Our bird screens were all intact. Our overflows all had proper screening on them, so it doesn't appear that anything got into any of the tanks, but we just wanted to make sure of that. That day, that afternoon, we notified Mass DEP of the problem, just to get them on the same page as us relative to the next steps we needed to take. So after we get notification, we have 24 hours to go out and collect those samples and collect the source samples. So on September 12th, we resampled the 4 positive sites plus the upstream and downstream, so that's 12 sites. Plus we took 6 samples from our sources for those enterococcus. Enterococcus is a much more problematic thing. If you find that, then you're in what they call a Tier 1 violation. That's the immediate notification. That's where you go to the boil order. Friday, we got the results from those. All of our sources came back clean. It's not a source problem. It's not a tank problem. What it appears to be is just we didn't have enough chlorine in the ends of the distribution system for a period. So we resampled Thursday. That Friday, we received notification that 3 of the sites resampled were still positive. The Hood School dropped out of the picture. That came back all clean, but we still had positive at the high school, the Swan Pond Tank, and Thompson Country Club. We made a decision to go ahead and chlorinate our water storage tanks. Water storage tanks, they act kind of as, they equalize the flows in the distribution system, but the water tends to sit in them for some time. So we sampled them. There wasn't much chlorine in them, so we actually went and climbed the tanks and added chlorine to bring the chlorine levels up in the water storage tanks. We actually had a Mass DEP rep out on site on Saturday to just oversee that. Sunday we resampled and still had 3 positive. The same 3 sites were still positive for total coliform. I talked to the lab this morning. We got the results this morning. This is what they call a presence absence test. It's not something where you can say, okay, there were 50 coliform in the sample. It's either the sample now, it either turns a color yellow, which indicates there's at least 1 coliform colony there, or it stays clear, which indicates that the sample is clear. So what they did say to me this morning is the samples were much less yellow, which indicates that there were far fewer coliform in there. But again, the coliform are there. They're going to have to be exposed to chlorine for some time probably to kill them. So to date this month, typically we collect 21 samples. To date this month, we've collected 43 samples, and we're still continuing to do that. Of those 43, again, 0 have tested positive for the worst bacteria, the E. coli. So, one of my guys said, this is the perfect storm. What caused this? I guess that's what we're going to try to answer. One of my guys said it's like the perfect storm. We had maybe 4 conditions that combined to do this. Our Central Street well pump failed in late August. One of our Andover interconnections comes through the Central Street pumping station. So we add chlorine to the water leaving our well. It also gives us a chance to chlorinate that Andover water. The way the system is set up, if the well pump goes down, all the chemical feeds go down. You can't have your chemical feeds in plugged into a plug that will work if the well pump fails. It's called an interlock system. It's part of the regulations. We have to be flow paced, so if the flow of the wells double, the rate that we add the chlorine doubles. We also have to be interlocked, so if the well shuts down, those chlorine pumps shut down. This has happened before in the summer where the Central Street is down. We haven't had a problem with the bacteria. Second cause we can point to, we've had a couple of relatively large water main breaks in the last 3 weeks or so. We had a big break at the high school on August 28th. On September 1st, there was a big break on Main Street in Andover, and that's where we're getting our direct water from. Try to clean things up as best as you can with the water break. There can be a little bit of dirt that gets into the system, and you typically chlorinate as you're putting the pipes back together. It's not always a perfect situation. We also had 2 fairly large fire flow tests in the beginning of September. We had the Shire Pharmaceuticals out on River Park Drive. They have the biggest fire pump in town, and they just replaced that. They did some water main work, put a new fire pump in, and then they ran it. What that does, it's very similar to a water main break. All of a sudden, you're pulling all this water to a location. What it tends to do is that little bit of sediment that's in the bottom of the system, it tends to pick it up. And we've had an ongoing problem from maybe mid-August to the beginning of September with the water coming in from Andover. I've been here 19 years. They typically give us perfectly clean water. It's crystal clear. There was a little bit of manganese coming in from Andover for about 3 weeks there, and never got a real good answer to it. But what happens is manganese itself isn't a problem. You know, you read your vitamins, there's manganese in your multivitamin. The problem is chlorine wants to react with everything. It only reacts with bacteria. It'll react with oxygen in the water, it'll react with iron, and it reacts with manganese. So if you're pumping so much chlorine into the water, now all of a sudden it's hitting manganese, it's not available to chew up something else. It's just reacting with that manganese. So what we found is the last samples we did on September 10th, the chlorine levels were low out in the system. Again, the steps we've taken, we've increased the chlorine being pumped in at the treatment plants. We inspected the tanks, we notified DEP, we chlorinated the tanks, we have the option to rechlorinate again. We continue to sample. Our Central Street situation is just about resolved. We're going to flush it tomorrow and then put it back online. Our annual flushing of the distribution system to get any of that small sediment out starts next week, and that'll carry on probably through the end of October. So those are kind of the short-term steps. We are hoping to have clean samples come back, but again, it's a matter of getting the high enough levels of chlorine out into the distribution system to get rid of this stuff permanently. Longer term, one of our standard practices is, because the water as it gets warmer does tend to eat up the chlorine faster, we'll increase the chlorine in the summer months. July, August, September are our highest water temperature months, so we're probably going to need to just jack that up even higher in the water going into the distribution system in the future. I'm going to talk to DEP about the possibility, if our Central Street pumps are down, can we still chlorinate the water we're taking from Andover? There is a way to tie the flow pace of the chemical pumps to the flow coming in from Andover. That's a fairly simple adjustment we may be able to make. Possible the need to periodically chlorinate the storage tanks. Again, I've been here 19 years, we've never done this. It was something we were kind of scrambling, and I got to give thanks to Dick and the DPW guys. They gave us a lot of help on Friday and Saturday taking care of that. And then the fourth thing is we do take our bigger interconnection from Andover is on Main Street. We don't have any facilities out there. All we have is a meter pit. The water comes in and we measure the flow and the volume. Possible, we might need to put some kind of chlorination system out there. So that's kind of the layout of where we are.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from Mark, board members? No? Okay.
Pretty clear.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving to informational hearings for October town meeting articles, including vote to lay out town way for Articles 20 through 29, and warrant article recommendations. Mr. Valley, starting on Article 20, street acceptance of John Bickford Way.
Yes, please. I want to explain for the people who may be present this evening, the acceptance of streets at town meeting. One of the requirements is for the Board of Selectmen to vote and accept the layout. Accepting of the layout requires a public hearing. You may have received a notice of that hearing, which is why you may be here this evening. So keep in mind that as we go through each street, there'll be an opportunity for the board to receive a report from both the Community Planning Commission and the DPW. There'll also be an opportunity for you to comment on it, but this is a requisite for the streets to be accepted at town meeting. There are several streets in here that have been in the ground for a long time, and people may say, why are we doing this now? The streets were never formally accepted. So this is a formality in terms of this final step that's required to quote-unquote have them become town streets. the benefit of that is the town receives money back for Chapter 90 from the state. So we want to accept as many of these old streets as possible. We've done and we've drafted plans which are on the table here this evening that depict the layout of those streets. And that's what the board is simply doing this evening, is voting to accept the layout of those streets. So the first item that's on the agenda is John Bickford Way, and that would be Article 20. And I would ask the DPW and CPC to make a recommendation.
DPW recommends approval. Acceptance. The CPC recommends.
Thank you.
Again, this is the only new subdivision
That's right.
street on the list. Everything else is existing way.
Anyone from the public wish to comment? Mr. Fode, do I have a motion?
Excuse me, are these public hearings?
Yes, this is public.
All right, so you may want to close the public hearing, or close the public hearing.
Is there actually a
No,
Formal notice?
not each of the streets has a particular time, so what I would ask you, the hearing is open. Upon conclusion of the warrant informational hearing, they would ask you to close it at that time.
Mr. Fode?
Mr. Cannavale, can you just, I know this increases our Chapter 90 money from the state, but can you tell us how much per mile, how much more money per mile we get when we accept a mile of road?
It was in the order of 10 to 15,000 last time I did the numbers. It's not a huge amount, but incrementally.
No, actually,
it adds up.
I thought it was around 14, but I wasn't sure. So you're in the ballpark where I said, thank you,
Order of magnitude.
thank you.
And what gets us, I guess, the other formula has factors in employment and population.
Right.
And I think our employment took a big hit 2 years ago, and that drove down, maybe counteracted what we've been doing here.
Yeah, and honestly, what I did was I took our lot, what we had gotten, divided by the number of miles, and so we were at, so just figured it that way, at 14. Thank you.
Motion?
I made the motion. Oh, I didn't, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of John Bickford Way as shown on a plan drawn by Hayes Engineering, Inc., dated September 13, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Dillon, I have pens for you to sign that Mylar.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Huh?
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're a good man.
Article 21, street acceptance of Poplar Terrace.
Recommend approval.
CPC.
Danielle said.
Okay.
Questions?
Questions?
From public?
Nothing from the public on Poplar Terrace? Okay. Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Poplar Terrace as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated November 7, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to town.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, board members? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Article 22, street acceptance, Hayward Avenue. DPW?
Recommend acceptance.
CPC?
Recommend.
Mr. Woodmansey.
Woodmansey?
Yeah, I believe that this was accepted a
You
long
just,
time.
could I just,
Gerald Woodmansey,
Thank you.
34 Elm Street.
thank you.
And I didn't get a notice on that, to my knowledge. And I'm in a butter on Hayward Avenue.
This isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Valiakonis, this isn't an issue.
that?
This is not an issue where the abutters to the property would get a formal notice submitted by,
Well, how
from
come
the
some
town.
get it and some don't?
There may be sections of the road that were previously accepted, and other sections of the road that were not previously accepted, and the intent here is to have the entire street accepted.
Can you tell me which sections were accepted and which weren't?
We have a plan.
Mr. Carvalho, can you assist in that? Do you? Thank you.
Hill Street, out of school, between School Street, and there's like 100 sections we never accepted. So sometimes the little things fall
I'm
down.
trying to find out what went on here, that's all. Because I've been here since 1958, and I thought everything had been out. Because we went through this, was a gas deal, and it was accepted. Because the town had refused to accept it for many, many, many years. And it was kind of very
Oh, yeah. Days.
This part, we was never accepted. So,
that part wasn't? Oh, okay.
Very physical changes.
Okay. I thought it all had been accepted.
And this depicts it right here.
Yeah, I understand.
Pretty
Okay.
much this U-shaped piece that's right here.
All right, so it's all been accepted. I mean, it's
All laid out.
all laid out.
Right.
Because this wasn't laid out until, when was this laid out? Any idea? Back 30 years ago or something?
The original plan looked like it was a plan in 1982,
Yeah, that would sound right.
85, 82, 85.
The surveyor will go in the background. Okay, all right, no, I just had a question, so it's this section from here and down.
No, no property takings involved.
Are they gonna do anything else? I mean, is there gonna be any more money spent or anything?
This house is getting
All right.
These were available to use that money. It just helps us.
Okay, thank you very much, that clears it. I just had a question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Woodmansey, are you satisfied?
Yes, that's okay.
Thank you. Anyone else on Haywood Avenue? Nope. Okay, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Haywood Avenue as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated November 14, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
A motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Article 23, Quinby Road, DPW, Mr. Cannavale? Thank you. CPC, Mr. Hayden?
Recommend acceptance.
Thank you. Oh, Ms. McKnight, I'm sorry.
If I'm not paying attention to it.
Anyone from the public want to be heard on, or have a question regarding Quinby Road? Please come up to the podium, sir.
I have a few questions.
What is the plan, short term?
Can you just identify yourself?
Please.
What?
Just identify yourself by name and address,
Oh,
please.
Philip Hebert, 10 Gage Road, North Reading.
Mr. Cannavale, you wish to answer the first question?
What's the short term and long term plan
For
for the building?
What are they be doing on these roads?
There's already been, I think Gage and a couple other ones, Quimby and Gage were already done like 10 years ago. They were never accepted after the fact, so there's no plans of any more construction.
Mr. Cannavale, I think this may be helpful, because I think there may be a lot of questions similar to this. Can you just explain for the public as to what it means by the town accepting these roads? I think that may be helpful. I think
There's
this
two kind of
would-
roads in Massachusetts. There's an accepted road that the town says we own and will maintain. There's basically unaccepted roads or private ways. We don't maintain private ways, and we historically maintain unaccepted roads, but unaccepted roads don't allow us to get money from the state to help us maintain, so we lose money. So this is, accepting this road is not gonna change anything other than it's no longer private property. The town will take it over, and the town's responsible for the maintenance.
And when is this road construction going to begin, you know? There's nothing, what are they building here? What are they doing? Just accepting streets? There's no structures? There's no,
No, just
nothing?
accepting. Quinby and all those were paved before my time. They just, town never accepted them after that. That was the, people put in money. There's a 50-50 program in the town of Betterment.
Right, we had to
Residents
pay
held
for our road.
Right. So the next
We're
step
paying the
after
same
that-
taxes, but we ended up paying 50% of the road, which is falling apart again. We can't get it repaved, so.
But this is to take it now, the next step on that process was to be accepted, so we could get money from the state for further maintenance.
Okay.
So it's a step that for some reason wasn't done 10 years ago.
Okay, so all we're talking about is accepting these streets. There's no building, there's no plans for
No.
condos, or single-style families, or Section 8, or any of that stuff.
No.
That's gonna come later?
There's no construction.
No, there's no plans.
There's no plans?
Just the planning department, there's no plans at all.
We have no plans before us, no one's talked to us about that.
No one's filed anything.
No one's inquired, so
He's gonna take a shot.
this is just to make these roads town roads so that the town will maintain them, and we get some assistance through the state. That's all this does.
Because they've been talking about Section 8, and they've been talking about they have to throw some in town somewhere. And our neighborhood come up a few times, so you have to wonder what exactly, why did they now
Yeah,
accept
this
these
is not why we're
streets?
doing it now. It was something that the DPW has been looking at for the last 2-3 years. And last year, we did a chunk of roads. And that was all that the DPW could, they have to do, to accept the road, you have to have the bounds of the road, you have to engineer it.
Right.
And get it on paper. That's all they could do last year was, they did maybe 8 or 9 roads last year. So this year, these roads have asphalt on them, let's get them done. So they went out and they did all the engineering work they needed to do to then accept them. So your roads just happen to be in that, it's paved.
It's paved, yeah, but it's all falling apart again because the slope of the road is all washed away. We can't get anybody to come down even
Well,
and
once-
suck up the crap out of the,
Well, once it's accepted, then DPW will be more responsible in going out there and taking care of issues on the road.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right now,
we've got
actually,
catch
it's
basins
your
that are filling
responsibility
up
to
and
maintain
nobody
the road.
comes down. We pay $8,500 like everybody else. We have to beg, borrow, and steal to get somebody to come down and do something for us.
So I think, Mr. Here, I think that'll be resolved once the town accepts it, then the town assumes responsibility for it, as opposed to, I know when you paved it, it was a portion that abutters paid, a portion that the town
Right,
paid.
yeah.
Now it becomes a town road, and it's
Right.
a responsibility. And
Actually,
in fairness, and the DPW has put together, through an engineering firm they hired last year, a pavement management plan that is gonna tell us what's gonna happen over the next 10, 15, 20 years, so you'll be able to tell you that once the road's accepted,
Where would we be?
where it
I mean,
stands
even
on
though
that.
we're accepted, does that mean they're still the bottom of the list? They got 50 streets ahead of us?
No, it's based on, what they do is they have
It's
a
based on
formula.
condition and the volume of traffic. So heavier streets, they're gonna get money first, but there are other ones like yourselves, and we can go look at it if there's something specific that needs to be fixed.
Oh, yeah, the whole side of the road is gone. It's just, that whatever they did wasn't a very good job. It's washed away. They didn't seal it, so eventually the water runs in and,
First step of the process is to get the town to accept it. And then from there, I'm sure Mr. Cannavale would be more than happy to meet with you and go out and go out and visit the street and see if there's something that needs to be immediately done.
okay, and we also have the catch basins that haven't been cleaned since I've been there 15 years, so they're full of gunk. I saw the guy come around with a claw, and I talked to him. He said, "Oh, yeah, we can do that." So I came down, and I haven't seen a soul since. It's almost like we're the weak sister or something. I don't know.
It's kind of because we don't own it, per se. I mean, it's officially it's your road, so we don't maintain stuff like that. We can in the future once we accept it, though.
I do have one question. There was 2 houses built, actually Mr. Kearns and my other neighbor. And the gentleman came in, and then this is what we're a little bit leery about this. He came in, he put 2 houses in, but he wasn't required to put in a road. He wasn't required to put in a water main. He just put 2 houses and left. So we're thinking, okay, what's down the road? I mean, when they start building, will they have the same type of contractor come in and just say, okay, I'm gonna throw this in, but I don't have to do this, and I don't have to do that?
That all has to get the town approval, so I don't know specifically what you're speaking towards, but anyone that develops their property has to get the proper approvals from the various town boards and committees, so.
Well, why would they let this guy just throw 2 houses up and leave?
That wasn't, all I can tell you is that wasn't us. I don't know if they've gone before CPC or if those are homes of
Single-family houses,
building
If
department.
it's on an unaccepted way that has safe and adequate access, the building inspector has right to give a building permit. And it has frontage on that access way. We didn't hear anything for improving the access on those roads.
Okay, so at this point, you're saying there's no building, there's no nothing going on.
As of right
But there's
now.
gonna be something down the road, right? There has to be. You're not gonna just approve streets and do nothing, right?
This is this, Mr. Fode,
So the state gives every community, every city and town in the state gets what's called Chapter 90 money.
Right.
Chapter 90 money is just solely used for fixing streets. Thank you. Only accepted streets. So the more streets that we accept, the more money we're gonna get from the state. So what DPW is doing, and Mr. Cannavale, is taking the initiative to go ahead and look at some of the streets that should be accepted, that we're still maintaining, that just not unaccepted. And once we start accepting those roads, again, for every mile we take, we're getting anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 more per year to be able to do work on roads that need it. So this is, the sole purpose of this is to accept as many streets as we can, so we can get more money from the state to
I
do the
understand.
work.
That's good, but I have to feel that somewhere down the road, you're just not gonna, there's a lot of woods there, and they've been talking about Well, down the end of my street, where Quimby comes in with Gage, they've been talking about putting 2 houses in the wetland. I don't know how they're gonna do that. They talked about that years ago. My other neighbor tried to buy that property, and he was told you can't do it. And now they're talking, later on you hear, oh, we may be putting 2 houses in the wetland. How do you do that? You build mounds? What do you, I mean, it's like, it's not okay for one person, but it's okay for somebody else to do something. There's this total conflict. There's just like, so there's got to be some confusion on our part as to what's going on here. I can't believe that at some point we're not going to be back here again saying, okay, now that we're approved, let's start talking about low-income housing. Whatever. There's got to be something. I'm not going to just do roads and walk away.
We accepted several, how many we accepted last year? 11 last year, accepting, the list is here today. It's for the sole purpose of being able to get as much money in Chapter 90 from the state as possible.
Mr. O'Leary.
Yeah, Phil, in relation to, whether someone is allowed to build or has a right to build, whether that's on the accepted street or an unaccepted street, doesn't matter as long as it meets the frontage. So whether the town accepts it or not, it didn't preclude those other 2 homes from being built. It wouldn't preclude other homes so long as there's safe and adequate access. Just because it's an unaccepted street, as evidenced by those other 2 homes that were built, it can happen anyway. What this does is it just puts it on the docket as an accepted street, which then transfers responsibility from where you had the shared cost of paving the road, now it becomes entirely the town's responsibility. One of the other questions that I have, and Dick, maybe you can help, Mr. Carnavale, a resident that called, correct me if I'm wrong, some of these streets right now are owned to the middle of the road, private property? Or,
The theory of paper streets is, no one's paying taxes on it, the layout, but technically, I guess if they wanted to buy it, they could buy it to the middle of the street.
and I guess my question is, because I didn't have the answer, I think I referred someone to you, and I don't know if you got the call. Is this a tacit taking, or, I know we're maintaining these,
Yeah, we do it taking it for $1.
what is it?
$1.
So this,
That's in the language of the plans.
so it does require tacit taking on the part of the town for the layout of the right-of-way.
Right.
So I think it's important for these residents to know that it's not just the acceptance of the street and the layout, but the town is actually assuming ownership of something that currently, probably on their plot plan, shows them owning to a certain point in the road.
I've seen it both ways, to be honest. Typically, it wouldn't be the easement. Unless there's an easement there, there's a not known situation.
May very well be an easement. And again, one of the residents that called me from Vogue Street, Mrs. Jones, she's unable to make it this evening. I don't know if she sent the letter in or not. Did she? Okay. She said when she had her land surveyed, she actually owns almost across the street. But I didn't have the answer to her question in relation to the tacit taking.
Typically, they don't. It's laid out. It's what they call a paper street if it's not built on, if they pave upon it. Plot plans I've seen typically do not have that in it. It could be in her case, the road is on her property. I've seen that happen also.
Oh, I see the layouts on some of the maps here where there's no indication that the road is even there. I mean, there's a road, but it's not where the layout is on the maps. But so I think we need to be upfront with the people to let them know that there is a tacit taking here whereby the town is now, if there's an easement, is now assuming ownership of that easement.
If there was an easement, they would have called out on the plan as part of his research, the surveyor. And where Greg has his hand right now with the right hand, usually if there's something like that, he would have called it out on the drawings, and none of them have easements.
Okay, again, I haven't looked at it that
You
closely.
can see it here.
But Phil, getting back to your initial concern as to what can happen next, this doesn't preclude anything from happening or not happening.
Yeah, but you're not looking to expand the town base by putting houses there? I mean, there has to be some kind of plan.
This board's not looking to do anything. It'd be whoever owns that land may at some point in time look to develop it. But this, by the action we're looking to take this evening for town meeting to take in a couple of weeks, that doesn't call for any
It's not
further
part of any grand
expansion.
scheme.
No.
There's no grand scheme here. And I choose that word scheme. There is no scheme.
I have a question for you.
Are you, is there town-owned property? Are you on your, on
No.
the street? No. I think it's all privately owned property, so.
No, this town plot's in there.
There is town plots there.
So, I'm not sure we had any on our list that we were looking at selling.
Well, if it's wetlands, it may be on the conservation.
No, there is some property down by
That's why, I
Mr. Hebert's
think so.
property
There is.
that we have held. And what was mentioned at one particular meeting was for potential affordable housing. But we didn't sell it.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we have a plan for it, but we chose not to sell it at this particular
He
time.
has a very fair question.
Yeah, no,
No, he doesn't.
no, and he has every right to be concerned, suspicious, but there is no plan at this point.
Okay, because the one you're talking about is a 10,000-foot plot. You can't build on because everybody's septics are right there. There's a 5,000. This, if you look back in the old town, from what I understood, they brought their trailers in, and they would sell you 5,000 square feet. Well, now the town owns all this
He has a
stuff.
house in a similar area.
Yeah,
It's a lot,
Okay, all right, so
I know
that's
exactly.
what they were doing back then. You want 5,000, you can have it. Here, put your trailer on. And now they're stuck with this property, okay, so they can't build on it. But they also have property at the end of my street that will never perk, and they know it. So I'm wondering, what are they gonna do with that? They're gonna try to stick something in there. And they got another one, if you look this way, some smart ass is gonna come in and go, oh, let's see, that road's about 50 feet higher than the, we'll just pave it like this and let the water run into the other homes. You know, you have to, there's a lot of things.
I understand the concern, but I think it's, I would say premature at this point. But
Okay.
this doesn't allow for any of that.
All right.
But there would be notices if there was any kind of plans for up in that area.
Not
There'd be public
necessarily.
hearings.
Well, it
Not
depends.
necessarily, if
Not
if
the
it's
front.
got adequate, safe and adequate access on an accepted or unaccepted street.
I'm
They
only
can go
talking
and they
about
can get a
the
building
town-
permit.
I'm only talking about the town-owned
Oh, if the
property.
town owned property,
Only
absolutely.
the town-owned, I'm not talking about any private property.
Yeah.
We have no control over that.
Just so we're clear.
But if there's anything going on with the town-owned property we have, there would be informational meetings, there would be.
Yeah, well,
public
you can't
hearings.
build, the town property is out of the question. Any private property, maybe. I don't know who owns what up there, but
So, obviously.
we'd have to be notified if they were gonna do something, right?
The town.
Private,
Yes.
on the town side, not private ownership.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else on Quinby Road? No? Sir? Mr. Carr.
Ron Kern, 12 Quimby Road. Steve, to answer your question, on my property plot, it goes up to the road. It's actually 8 feet away, so I couldn't do anything up to that road. So my plot doesn't include the road at all.
Does that, in that particular
Nothing
case.
on that. So, no problem with the acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone further on Quinby? Seeing no one? I'll entertain a motion, Mr. Fode.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Quimby Road as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated November 26, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving to Article 24, Street Acceptance, Gage Road. DPW recommends. CPC
Recommend approval.
recommends. Anyone here from the public who wishes to be heard? Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Fode.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Gage Road as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated November 28, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving to Article 25, Street Acceptance, Cameron Road, DPW. Recommend. CPC,
Recommend approval.
anyone here to be heard relative to Cameron Road? Seeing no one. Mr. Fode, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Cameron Road as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated November 28, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Article 26, Street Acceptance, Caroline Road, DPW. CPC.
Recommend approval.
Anyone here from the public wish to be heard on Caroline Road? Seeing no one. Mr. Fode, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Caroline Road as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated December 10, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Article 27, Street Acceptance, Wadsworth Road, DPW. CPC.
Recommend approval.
Anyone here to be heard on Wadsworth Road? Sir, please come up, identify yourself and your street address, please.
My name's Art Cogan, 21 Wadsworth Road. I guess I don't want to take much of everyone's time here, but Wadsworth Road actually extends across Linwood in both directions. So I need to look at the plan and understand what the focus is here. Because several years ago, the upper end of Wadsworth, the side that I do not live on, was part of the betterment, and it had a 50-50 pavement. And I had made a phone call, and I don't know if it was directed to the DPW or not, but there's some confusion there. And the very end of the north side of the street, down the hill, we also are a dirt road. So as currently constituted, there's say 3 homes that aren't on the paved portion of that road. So my question is that going to be something that can be looked into, or if the town accepts this road, is the town, I know that you said earlier that there's no
Just
plan.
that segment, I guess, if you're going up Linwood to the left, that's paved.
That, yes,
That
that's,
segment.
yes.
It's not the other segment.
Yeah, I live on down the hill. So is that part, I mean, is this the whole street trying to be accepted now?
We were trying to pick up that one piece that was paved through that betterment.
Okay. So yeah, there goes the confusion again. So I received a letter in the mail, and I think the down the hill side of Wadsworth sort of is the ugly little sister. So I don't know if I can understand.
You can see a plan.
Sure, you can come look at the plan if you'd like.
Yeah, not my street. So I'm down here on 21. So,
And a lot of these acceptances are discontinuous, they're not necessarily the entire street,
No, I
sometimes cars.
captured that earlier.
For some reason, some of these streets were accepted back in the day, aren't marked. I have a reason for it. Clean them up.
Yeah, so this is one way, on the other side. The extension of
I can check and get back to you, I'm positive that that's accepted.
I don't know, but I think the people that did 19 ones, they called out, and you guys came out and paid, and it was like, you sort of said, oh, you paid, and then you sort of just paid right from the house.
Yeah, someone called about like a depression or something.
Yeah, well, actually, what had happened was, is when you guys came out and on the hydrant flushing, it washed out a huge portion of the road, so they paved in front of her house, went right up to the hydrant, and then just left the rest. So, I mean, I guess my purpose of asking questions is so I can be better informed, understand it.
Well, let me get your number, let me investigate, see if it's accepted or not, number one.
Okay.
See what we can do. Yeah, you guys can be a name and number, I'll give you my card.
Mr. Cannavale, this street, this portion of Wadsworth is, you're saying it's to the left of Linwood?
It is.
Okay. Just so we're clear, so if anyone's watching at home,
It is.
it's not the entire street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else regarding Wadsworth Road? Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Wadsworth Road as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated November 10, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Article 28, street acceptance, Volk Street. Any- DPW, thank you. CPC? Just gotta hear both of you. Anyone here to speak regarding Volk Street?
Oh, thank you.
Hello, I'm Mary Ahern from 10 Volk Street,
Hello.
and I'd like to see the plans and see how far down it goes. The last 3 houses.
Mr. Cannavale, you're not just showing her the plan?
Yeah, it's in Fair Street, right up to.
Steve, you want to address obviously again, Priscilla's called to you, and there was a letter in the packet, so.
There's a letter back?
Yeah.
When they had the guy come down, about the water, comes down the street. I have a drain that runs across my
Page 30 through Wednesday.
It's been an issue with drainage here. We've had a couple of iterations.
I have a drain, it's been years taking care of the water that comes down the street. And then- Yes. And the mayor came down and said that. They never went out there, so the water went down.
Okay, thanks, sorry.
But they said they would maintain that pipe going down. And they would
This will
do
be
that. Would they maintain that pipe?
Right now, it's literally a shoot. This will basically 100%
Well, all we're gonna do is the water coming down. Yeah, and we're a little concerned about this section here. So it's not gonna be.
The layout is different. The layout is literally just the legal one. So that's all it is.
So there'll be no more physical changes, really? Yeah, it's two drains there that I catch.
Just that it helps us from the state and gives us more options for funding.
The only other question is worrying about the flowers. That's what I'm gonna try and put a plus house here, I hope that'll help. But is there anybody's buying it, or can I just address it? Way down here.
We haven't signed something.
That's what I was.
Actually, we have. Sure, that's what happened.
And I want the water in my kitchen.
Yes, sir.
She was just concerned if there's any land taken involved, she would go ahead
So, yeah, finish the street analysis, I was gonna jump down to 11, 12, 15 through 19.
Right
then
now, we
obviously
maintain
BC.
this land. This is my house.
So after we get through the street acceptances, I was gonna jump down to the ones that involve CPC, which are 11, 12, 15 through 19.
So this is all bushes, we've been maintaining them. Yes, we have. And we'd like to continue to have that. So that's why I was hoping that it was gonna be hot tub.
Yeah, we don't, we're not gonna make that.
What has to be done so we can get the sidewalks plowed down to the Middleton line? There's a lot of seniors, what can we do? I've tried to talk to him before and I've got nothing. How do we do it? That's what we're gonna do. Huh? There's a lot of seniors. They take that away.
As a public way, everybody has right to pass. Anybody can drive in. The sidewalks are down to the Middleton line.
Up to here, because that'll allow me the.
This doesn't legally keep anybody from being possibly.
Okay. We want to keep it that way.
Pretty quick.
Thank you.
Are you satisfied?
Yes.
Well, they answered your questions.
Yes.
Sure, but your questions have been answered. Okay. Anyone else wish to be heard regarding Oak Street? Mr. O'Leary, do you want to address the call in the letter we received regarding, from?
Sure, yeah,
Mrs.
Priscilla Fitzgerald of 5 Oak Street had contacted me and indicated that she was gonna be out of town on tonight, which was a hearing date, and she had some questions in relation to, to any takings that were gonna take place. If that were the case, she would not going to be, and she would not be in favor of it at all. She kinda likes her quality of life down there in the neighborhood, and wants to make sure that that's maintained, and that the acceptance of the street would not, cause any detriment to the neighborhood. I referred to the town, head of the DPW to get some questions answered. It appears as though she did get some answers to her question. She said if it's a legal taking, then she believes it's required to have a 30 days notice. She's not interested in that, but if it's a simple matter of paper shuffling, as she says, then she doesn't have a problem with it. Again, she just wants to make sure that, in my conversation with her, that there is some access to Martin's Pond down the end, that she didn't want to see that necessarily opened up to the whole public, and, if there's any town land down there, to create a parking area and create a disruption. It doesn't appear as though that would be the case, because the Hearns and Sylvia's own the property. So that isn't the case. And again, my only question would be now at the end of the street, and what would now be the public way, it would appear as though there are some steps going down, access to the pond that Mrs. Ahern has been maintaining for a number of years. I assume is still willing to do so, but I don't know if that creates a problem or not.
It's an existing condition. I don't think anything's gonna change it.
Yeah, so,
Essentially, if we break it, we own it, so if we did something to break the wall at the end of the drainage, we would be responsible to fix it. That's how we operate.
yeah. Again, the only thing she'd be concerned about is if there were gonna be any changes in the road with, storm drains or storm sewers, which they already are dealing with the issue in relation to the condos, which are right on Main Street, beginning of Oak Street. There's puddling and problems with that particular site already. She just wants to make sure that, that doesn't happen, and she wants to make sure that it doesn't, the Posey Street, she doesn't want any curbing on it and doesn't want it widened. She doesn't want that sort of stuff. So she just wants to make sure that she's just accepting the street, so you get some more Chapter 90 money and leave the neighborhood alone. And the indication is that she's gonna get what she's looking for. Right?
Nothing.
Huh?
Nothing.
Nothing. Right. Very good. All right, thank you, Mr.
O'Leary.
Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else on Oak Street? No? Okay. I'll
Just
entertain
would
a-
you, excuse me, would you indicate that the letter's now part of the public record too, because it is in our packet?
Yes, it is.
So, okay.
I'll entertain a motion, Mr. Fode.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of Vogue Street as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated November 1, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Article 29, last street acceptance, MacArthur Road. DPW? CPC? Thank you. Anyone here to speak regarding MacArthur Road? No? Mr. Fode, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the layout of MacArthur Road as shown on a plan drawn by LeBlanc Survey Associates, Inc., dated December 11, 2012, by signing said plan and reporting to the town.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Very good. And CPC planner is here. She's a little under the weather, so with board's indulgence, I'd like to skip to Articles 11, 12, and then to 15 through 19 that involve CPC, so that we
Not
can
until we
send her home to take care of herself.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I just wanted to remind you, as I've been told, the plans are here on the left-hand pile is the only ones that need to be signed. Those are the plans that require endorsement, and please use the pens that have been provided by CPC. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Valiakonis, we're moving to Article 11 first. Article 11 is to appropriate money for the North of Boston Regional Shared Housing Project.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
Where are we?
Article 11.
administration's recommendation is the amount of $13,740 be appropriated for this purpose. The step of approval at town meeting is the first step. This would require an intermunicipal agreement between the participating communities in order to become effective, and we look at that this is a one-time opportunity. Once the door closes, it will not be available to us. So again, the purpose of the program is related to monitoring and looking to develop a regional affordable housing plan, of which North Reading would be part of that.
Mr. Valley-Tonis, am I correct, this is in the amount of $13,740. That'll be the base annual fee if we become a partner?
Correct. It would be a reoccurring cost, and going forward, if we were a participant, we would build it into the budget and have it go through the annual budget process.
Mr. Hayden, Mrs. McKnight, would you like to speak concerning this particular argument? I believe our affordable housing allotment comes under your purview in terms of, I don't know if it's actually monitoring comes under you, but certain regulations come under your purview. So if you'd like to come up and speak relative to this particular article.
So I've been, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. I've been attending all of the meetings that MAPC has been holding for the North Suburban region relating to this project. It is very much a work in progress, and they're still confirming which communities want to be part of it and plan to commit the money. Basically, what they're looking at doing is establishing a system or establishing an office that would be shared among several communities, whereby all of the records would be maintained in this consolidated office, and they would help us to make sure that none of our units, expired or that we lost any units from our subsidized housing inventory due to improper monitoring or compliance. That's the main purpose of it, at least in the first year. But there would also be some services available for activities such as planning for new affordable housing. I have been working with MAPC to try to determine exactly what the specific benefits would be to the town. On the one hand, I think it would be a very good thing for us to plan for affordable housing during a time when we don't have very high pressure, when there isn't a lot of financing available right now for 40Bs. We're still below our 10%, unfortunately. On the other hand, I have struggled to get a really good, tangible answer of what we would be getting for the funds. So on the one hand, I would be really reluctant to see the North Suburban region go ahead with a regional affordable housing program that we were not part of, given that we want to get to our 10% and we want to maintain our 10%. On the other hand, it's very hard for me to stand here and tell you exactly what we'd be getting.
How do we presently monitor what properties are affordable and are they still continue to be affordable? How does that process take place now? What can they do for us that we're not doing now?
Well, right now, the ZBA keeps good records of the 40Bs, and that those are most of the projects that we have that have subsidized housing. Jody keeps really good files of everything that we have. I've spoken to her, and she is happy to also share with me all of the information that she gets from the monitoring agents. And then we have some of the others, the 40R that we have, and a couple of other projects that aren't 40Bs. We don't have a lot of projects, and so I don't really think that our burden for maintaining records and for reporting and for compliance it's not a huge burden. I'm still getting a handle on exactly what needs to be done to make sure we stay in compliance with all the units, because it is a little bit complicated, and all of the agencies sort of give you a different answer, and each project has its own terms and conditions. But my understanding is that it's not a huge burden for the town. That part of it is not really something I think that we need to, farm out, so to speak.
Thank you. Board members? Mr. Lynn?
Just, is this central depository of information going to include, because I don't know that we have, I know we have the records, but I don't know that we've actually consolidated everything and really have an inventory and an accounting for when those certificates expire.
I think actually that would be part of it, and that probably would be a very helpful part of it.
I mean, I think we should have that anyway.
I think that we probably should, though it's very common for communities to not really have that. The information that the agencies are supposed to send communities about each of the units doesn't always get sent. In theory, we should be notified when, something is about to expire, or when, we're about to lose a unit due to sale, or, re-renting, but that doesn't always happen. And I mean, certainly if we had this, it would be a benefit, because then we could be assured that we had somebody overseeing it for us and we didn't miss anything. On the other hand, I can't really stand here and say that it's something we have to have and we're going to lose units. I can really see both sides of that.
I mean, I know, time has a way of marching on here, and, a lot of these 40Bs are now 8, 10 years old, and I think the expiration date is 20, 25 years. And again, out here on 62, I mean, there's 406 units that we got credit for, but at some point, again, 25 years down the road, I believe, and when did that come on, Bob? Maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago? So in 20 years, we lose 406 units, which gets added to our, it's already been added to our inventory. As soon as we built those 406 units, we had to come up with, we're 41 short, 10%. Well, we picked up 400.
Right.
We gained the responsibility of additional 4, and that's why we're below the 10% level.
Certainly not losing units due to the process that you're describing would be a benefit to being part of this program, and that is a really important benefit. I think where and I know the CPC has also struggled with this, is that we are having a hard time, if in terms of them not being able to promise giving us a real plan or a real recommendations for avenues to creating new units. And in one respect, that's a really important thing that the town really needs, and maybe funds could be better spent, specifically for that. But I think you're absolutely right that not losing units is a very important part of this, maintaining the 10%, problem, and that is something that this program could offer help.
And I understand it's still in its infancy stages. How many other communities are actively considering?
There are 6 communities that are part of the discussion.
6?
6, and 3 of them I think are pretty much committed at this point. The other 3 either are probably not or still on the fence.
Where are we?
We haven't committed anything yet.
So we're on the other 3. Who
Right.
are the 6?
Danvers, Peabody, Reading, Saugus, Wilmington, North Reading.
So Saugus we think is committed, and Wilmington is on the fence. Reading is definite. They're the lead town on this, and actually, if we establish the office, it would be housed probably in Reading. And then the others have given probably we are interested, but we're not positive we either have the funds or that we are ready to commit. So, I mean, as Mr. Valiakonis said, this is definitely something it's in its very early stages, and it's true that if we said no right now, it might be hard, not from MEPC's perspective to get back into the program, but it would be established without us. And
what about the lack of contiguousness? I mean, we've got Reading, Wilmington, North Reading, Danvers, so we've got Middleton in between, and then you've got Saugus down the road. How does MAPC resolve that in relation to regional planning and?
Well, what they've done is they've identified these communities because we all except, I think, one of the communities recently reached their 10%. I think Wilmington recently was certified. The others are all in a similar situation that we're in, which is very close to 10%, not quite there. So we're all dealing with very similar issues as far as strategy. It's not so much a regional strategy in the sense of, well, we'll do this if Saugus does that because we can play off of each other. We can't really. But the problems, the solutions that they'll come up with and the kinds of services that they can offer are the same kinds of services they hope that all of the communities could use, even if we're not neighbors necessarily. I mean, certainly we all do have very different situations. I mean, North Reading is very unique in that we have very few ownership units and a lot more rental units proportionally. And those ownership units don't take are what takes more of the work in terms of maintaining them, in terms of reporting and record keeping and compliance. That's very different in other communities where they have lots of ownership units. So their work hours would be dedicated toward their needs, where our work hours would be dedicated more toward our needs.
But again, in relation to this, what happened out on Route 62 is, we picked up credit for over 400 units, where only
Right.
40 of them, or 100 of them, 25% are actual affordable. So when those certificates expire, we lose 400 units, whereas the ownership ones are little in dribs and drabs. But that's one felt swoop. So I think we're facing a far more critical issue down the road than a lot of other communities. And,
That's a good point.
and we really don't have a good comprehensive plan as to how we're going to address it.
Right.
If this can help supplement, I mean, we don't have a lot of staff around here, but if this can help supplement us creating a plan, it's like hiring a consultant every year
Exactly.
to assist us.
At a much lower cost.
At a much lower cost with no benefits. So that's where I see the benefit coming in, if we can get that kind of commitment from MAPC and say, this is this is the situation we're in, and we're somewhat unique because of the high number of rental units, and, help us work our way through it.
Right.
But,
I agree with that. I mean, I think those are excellent points and would be definitely in the category of, pros as to why we should join the program. And even if we were to commit to the amount of money, or even if we were to get the appropriation, it wouldn't necessarily commit us. If we came down to signing the intermunicipal agreement and we really didn't think we were getting anything from it and we decided we didn't want to do it.
is there a time frame that we have to commit to?
I think over the next few months, they're going to be finalizing the agreement, and if they don't get 4 communities to say yes for sure, they're not going to do it. So I would say between now and the end of the year, we're going to know much more.
But it was just some talk about how long how long we'd be committed to the program?
It's a 2-year contract, but with an opt-out after the first year. So if after the first year we decided we just didn't like the program and we weren't getting a benefit from it, we could drop out with no penalty.
So 2 year?
2 years with the opt-out option after
that's
1 year.
Okay.
Mr. Hayden first, then Mr. Prisco.
The CBC discussed this and we weren't really in favor of it, because we're so small. We're looking at Danvers, Saugus, Reading, large. It's gonna be one person working on this. We're gonna be their last 5% of their time. That was our concern. Was that $13,000 gonna be spent well by the town, by utilizing this? Be nice to get their information, but will we get anything really good out of it? And Danielle thought that she would be able to at least get us up to date on what we have and make sure we have the records well up to date and knowing what's happening with them, so we'll know when things expire. 400 and some odd units, that's easy, because that's one date for all of them. For us to replace those 400 units, it's gonna be very difficult without having something like that, again, as rental.
Which adds another 400 units and another 40 on top of it, and,
Right, I mean, it's a real.
There's a snowball effect.
It is, and we're pretty close to being built out with available land. We're starting to get the tear downs. Saw that on Winter Street. And I'm sure we're gonna start seeing more of those. People have been doing it in dribs and drabs by basically taking their roof off and building up, but still living there. There's some properties that are 4 or 5 acres that are owned in one, with a house on it, and the house is gonna go away and they're gonna develop the back lots, but there's not a huge amount of those left. Not enough that we can actually reconstitute 425 units quickly and easily.
Mr. Prisco?
During your discussions, did the budgets come up? Did you guys have a budget discussion so you have an idea what it's gonna look like expense-wise? I mean, I understand this is $13,740. Is next year gonna be roughly the same? It's gonna be a 20% increase each year?
They expect that the costs would go down because upfront they would have more work hours that needed to be put into establishing the office and going through every community's records and establishing their database. They were hopeful that the first year's estimated, baseline cost would be the highest, and that in subsequent years we could expect to see that go down.
And the second question I have is, are they planning to bring more towns in, or always just leave it this small group that you start off initially?
I don't know. If we were to look at, there are some other models of the same type of regional housing office in other parts of the state, and I think they have all kept to their original groups with a couple of towns dropping out here and there. I don't know that they've added any, but I can find that out.
Thank you.
Mr. Sierra, then Mr. Wolpe.
I guess what I'm struggling with is, if it's a matter of record keeping, I can't see paying someone else to do a job and records that we should have, maybe not compiled in one place.
But it sounds like you
But
say the
I
records are in
think-
good shape.
But I think the point Steve is making is that, and it's been on my mind too, is that the Berry property is kind of unique in the form of apartments, and it goes away with a puff of smoke, and I don't remember the exact date, but in the 20s. So the struggle that we have, and we have a build-out problem coming up, is how do we meet those requirements? Well, I guess in my mind is if we're built out and no one's doing anything else, then it's not our problem.
Right. How can they force us to do something?
I mean, you can't add housing if there is no space for housing, right?
They do what I'm talking about, somebody could come in and buy one of those 5-acre lots.
True,
and
yeah.
Then you got a 40B coming
Right.
in.
So I think the real issue is, putting a plan together, and I don't know, I'm not convinced that you get it from here to find ways of keeping up with the inventory requirement.
Well, we have some.
In anticipation of losing a big chunk of it all at once
Right.
in the 20s, whether it's 24, 25.
We do have somewhat of a plan together. We've got the low-income housing overlay district, where we've designated some properties for a density bonus, basically, to put like a duplex there. Those, we've done some of that. And, the little subdivisions that are coming in now, we're trying to get them to give us, either save the house when we've got one maybe coming in at some point that they had to buy a lot to get to their property. And they didn't need to use the whole lot. They're gonna take the existing house, lift it, turn it, put it back down. Give it a legal lot, and they're gonna go buy the front of it. And that would be designated as an affordable housing. And that would come in as an owner occupied house. We've got one from Little Meadow Way that's under construction, I believe. Or at least
Either or will be soon,
they pulled the
yeah.
building permits,
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
did.
sure if it's under construction. That's a separate out parcel that they owned, and they're building a affordable house there. That'll be an owner occupied house. So we are doing things, we're trying to do things. Warren's not here, but if Warren was here, I know what he would say. If someone comes up with this plan for us, but we don't do anything with it, what's Mass Housing gonna say? You've got this plan, but it's not doing it, you're not using it. You're not keeping up with it, because we can't with what the folks come up with, because we're kind of a interesting, unique
I'd say.
town at the moment, right now. 25 years ago, we weren't, but nobody wanted to put 40Bs here because, I don't know, they didn't make enough money for them. They didn't see a need for them here, I'm not sure. I wasn't, involved at that point.
Mr. Wolpe?
Yeah, I have two questions. Firstly, this 13,740, are all the towns paying the same amount, or is that relatively different for the different size based on population or housing or something like?
It's based on the number of units that we have, affordable units. So what they've done is they've calculated how many hours would be dedicated to each town based on its needs for monitoring and compliance. And they have broken it out. And I think it's not just the number of units, but also an estimate of what other kinds of services we would need. So that amount is less than most of the communities. I don't think it was the lowest, but proportionally, each community was assigned, a dollar value amount for this service.
The other comment that I had was sensitive to what may be happening in 20 or 25 years.
Less. Yeah.
I mean, frankly, that's pretty far out. Nobody here knows what's going to happen between now and then in terms of affordable housing, the laws, the regulations, or anything else. I'm not saying we should lose visibility on it, but it is pretty far out. But I have difficulty in supporting something, $14,000 expenditure, when it seems like there's very fuzzy goals, very fuzzy expectations of what we're going to get out of it. I wouldn't have any difficulty in giving this organization a formal, keep us posted, we might be interested. But to plunk down a deposit on this, I'd have some difficulty with. Especially since I don't hear anyone here that's strongly in favor of it.
It is difficult because the program is still being developed, and so it is really hard for me to say, here are the tangible benefits we would get from it.
Right.
It's hard to say that.
Mr. Hebert?
I thought we were told when the Route 62 complex next to the park there was built, that would take care of all of our affording housing.
It did for that moment in time, for
25 years.
25 years.
It only did that for the census count for 2000.
Right.
It changed at the census of 2010, because then all the housing that had been built was added to that census. So right now, how many units are we down right now?
I don't know the number of units, but we're at 9.2% affordable. We were at 11% at the time that project was built, but the more market rate units are built in town, the more the ratio changes and the lower our percentage of affordable housing.
Well, and those 400 units were not factored into the census data, which again put us over the 10%. And then once the new census data came out, which included those 400 units, you end up owing them 41 units, 10% of what's there. So that's why we fell a little bit short, just strictly because of that one development.
Do they have a plot of where they're thinking of putting these more 40s that they need?
No. Part of what they would help us do is, first of all, maintain all of the records and maintain the housing inventory that we already have. That's their number one priority, at least for the first year. In addition to that, they're hopeful that they would be able to help us plan for new affordable housing, but it would be a planning process. It wouldn't be that they have specific sites in mind or specific kinds of projects. They would help us think through how we wanted to strategize affordable housing in the future so that we could best plan for the town. There are no specific projects that they would approach us with.
You know, between the high school, this new high school for 110 million, and now what part of this road improvement is Chapter 90 going to take care of? 10%, 20%, 40%?
Guess I don't quite understand.
Well, you say you're going to get money from Chapter 90 from the state, by approving these roads, right?
We did that.
Yep.
We're on
a different
we're on
article.
a different.
Well, if you're gonna put in hydrants and all this and pave roads, right? The difference is gonna have to be new taxes to go along with the new high school to be that. So can we expect new taxes down the road? Yeah. So where's this money coming from?
Associated with what?
I'm confused. Mr. Valley-Conis, can you help?
Yes, I understand the question. The town is using some of its surplus revenues to fund this program, as we recommend for town meeting in October. Going forward, each year after this town meeting will have an opportunity through taxation to decide whether or not they wish to fund this affordable housing program going forward.
Does that answer your question? As I know I didn't understand it, but I don't know if that answered it. Kinda, okay, well, good. I don't understand any of it
So
then.
many variables in this whole thing, so many things have happened in the last couple of years.
This issue deals with affordable housing. We have to get to 10% of our housing lot has to be affordable housing.
I
And we're-
understand that, but most of the time when they come up with some kind of thing, it's always in the most condensed areas. I see rolling hills that belong to the
Well-
town behind certain people's homes, and they don't ever look that way. They look to Martin's Pond or Myers. For some reason, they want we must feel like the weak sisters. I don't get it.
As Mr. Hayden had stated earlier, the CPC has already taken a look at this and did some zoning relative to affordable housing. Because as he indicated, we're pretty much built out. So they looked at specific areas, and is it a bylaw that we have now? Or is it
Zoning bylaw.
Zoning
Yep.
overlay for affordable housing. So that's in place. So there are particular areas that they're designated that would be suitable for affordable housing.
But what did that do, Chris? And I don't recall, I remember the overlay being done, but I don't recall how many units it
I don't recall.
identified, but it was
I
small
think
number.
they're in 20.
Right, small number.
It is small, but it's a stepping stone.
Okay.
It shows that this town is trying to go to get to our goal. Where if you had a goal before the Department of Housing, exactly, good faith effort, that's an absolutely good phrase to use for this. And utilizing, if we have these smaller subdivisions come in and we can utilize one of those lots, that would, add a bigger area to someone's property, take that and make that one affordable. Let's not lose the small house that's there, the 2 or 3 bedroom house, turn it, utilize it, save that house instead of just wrecking it. Saves the contractor tons of money. He still has to put money into it, but then it keeps it affordable for him, and it makes it worthwhile for him to help the town, to get where we wanna go.
Mr. Prisco?
In these other towns that are being discussed as part of this, we're probably one of the best right now in percentage-wise of achieving the goal, right?
I think Daniel said
They're pretty
Wilmington
close.
is 10.
Wilmington, I think, has just achieved 10, and all of the others are in the 9-point range, 9-point-something range. So we're all really pretty close.
But I think Wilmington probably has benefited because of those Avalon developments, which I
Right,
think
and
they have
those are
2 or
probably
3 of
gonna
them.
come away from them
Because same
also.
idea, they're gonna be in the same situation we are. I think they have at least 2 of those Avalon developments over there in Wilmington.
Right,
Um,
they're
yeah.
gonna happen sooner than ours.
So they have a significant number of units in their inventory which are rental, because Avalon are all rental, I believe. Where they get credit for all of them. Same situation as we have over here at the Berry property.
Last question.
Mr. Prisco?
So what's your recommendation?
So far.
Your recommendation, not our
Okay.
recommendation.
Well,
Yeah, I don't care about that. I'm just kidding.
okay, I think that it would be a good thing for North Reading to at least ask for the appropriation. If it comes time for us to sign the intermunicipal agreement and we decide based on the final details of the program that we hate it and we don't want to do it, then we don't do it. I think that's where the way I would recommend it.
So I appreciate your recommendation. I see that as a little backwards. No offense. I do, because I don't see a defined benefit. No, I'm just, honest opinion, I see it as a little backwards. I'd rather see before we appropriate anything, what the defined benefit is for this community. In terms of helping us keep track of what we have and when it's coming off, I can't see, and that's all I've heard so far is what they will give us at this point.
Right.
For
That's-
nearly
yeah.
in excess of $13,000 this year. And nothing goes down in cost, it goes up. They may say it's gonna go down. I don't see it going down. So I think it's premature for this community to jump in. I think we're unique. We're almost built out. We're close. We're a little over 9%. We're close to that 10%. We're just about built out. We're not gonna drop until these apartments come offline. And
The
probably
next
another
census.
17 to,
I
No, we're not gonna-
Yeah, I would say more than 17.
It's more like
Yeah,
15,
the next
16,
census-
17.
Missouri's right, it's 2020 something.
Yeah.
it's still,
I thought it was 2025, but I'm
That's what I
not
thought it was
100%.
so it's still greater than a decade out. CPC has taken steps in terms of this overlay district, okay? So you've shown a good faith effort to try to get to your 10% goal, what's required by the state. I don't see the value in spending in excess of $13,000 at this point on an annual basis. That's where I stand.
Those are exactly the arguments that this
That's
had.
that's exactly what we
So,
said.
I
And I
think
didn't
you're very
attend, nor
much
did I
in it.
hear what
Yeah.
they had to say, but that's
Yeah.
that's
you're right that I couldn't give you more tangible benefits than that, so. You're right.
Yeah, you did a wonderful job, and like I said, no offense, but that was
No,
that was my
none
take on
taken.
it.
It's,
Thank you.
okay.
If we had the money in our coffers, you know, the CPC ourselves, and then, you know, after all the information came through, and it was a good project, we would probably pay for it, once we had deliverables and all that. The issue is, we don't.
We don't.
And we wouldn't be able to until June again, and that's really not time, you know, to look for money. So that's kind of why Danielle's bringing it now.
No, I
It's
understand.
not that we
No.
don't support Danielle, we support her 100%. And she
Great.
fell on her sword by saying, I'm gonna get as much of this inventory together as she can, and she's already worked
I'm trying to do
very
that.
hard at pulling it together. That's why she knows how good our records are so far. So she was just trying to keep us, the town, open to this if it was gonna pay money.
There's a value in taking a look at these, and I appreciate that, so. I appreciate the efforts you and Mr. Valiakonis have gone through, but that's where I stand on this. Anyone else wish to be heard concerning this warrant article? Mr. Valiakonis?
Keep in mind that the board has a position, the issue's been discussed at length. If you wish to vote a recommendation, there has not been a recommendation yet made on this article.
I'll entertain a motion. One key is the good one.
I move to recommend.
Do I hear a second?
You can always vote it down, and then it's not.
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ross?
And again, while the defined benefits of the appropriation are still a little bit sketchy here, I still think, that was Phil's word, sketchy. I still think there's a benefit of getting into the ground floor on something like this. I think assisting with the inventory of what we have, no doubt we should have it here, but we don't, we don't have it collected. But looking at it from a collective standpoint, and I think the resources that MAPC has may exceed ours, and the time that they spend on our behalf to assist us in putting together a more comprehensive plan to meet our affordable housing needs may very well be worth it. Where we have an opt-out after the first year, and it's only a 2-year deal, I think the sooner we start addressing the issue, really starting to address the issue rather than just knowing it's hanging out here somewhere, I think the better position we're gonna be in. And we're limited in our resources, human resources here within Town Hall. I mean, our Board of Appeals person is part-time, I don't know how many hours she works, but 12 maybe?
Yep.
12 hours. And you're a little busy over there, Danielle, with your staff. So I think, again, without adding benefits and all the rest of the employees and overtime for other people, I think we should buy into the program. I think we should get ourselves into a position to demand some useful services, and if it doesn't pan out, we bail out. But I think this is an opportunity to get in on the ground floor to start really looking at our affordable housing needs. And again, 20 years is not that far away. It comes up very quickly. And to be faced with what we're gonna be faced is gonna be a daunting task to address. And I think the sooner we start looking at it, the better off we're going to be. So that's why I think we should appropriate the money, take a look at what the deal's going to be. It could still, we may not even sign on to the agreement, but I think we should recommend appropriating the money at this particular point in time. Give us a couple, 3 months to take a look at the program and not have to wait till June to get in on the deal. So, that's my feeling, and the reason for my motion.
Anyone else? Mary Ann?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Messeri.
So, the problem I have is signing on to something before it's defined enough so that I know what I'm signing up on. But Steve may have opened the door when he said, we can appropriate the money and not sign up. So the question is, does the board, do I get a chance to, before we sign up, if we decide to sign up, assuming we appropriate the money at this October town meeting to review the situation before someone signs on the dotted
And
line.
I think we should direct the administration to just do that, which is, don't sign on the dotted line until we have more detail.
We would be pleased to bring it back and make the decision as a collaborative effort between the planning board and the selectmen, because a lot of the issues that we have to get through, the selectmen have to be on board anyways. And I understand Mr. O'Leary's point of view. He's been on the 40B committee, working with the 3 40Bs that have, and
More than that.
the big one over here, I think, we worked on it for
Yeah, but
you.
we had Pilgrim Road, we had Chestnut Street, we have Central Street,
Oh, right, and Elm Street,
Elm
Yeah.
Street, I don't know.
and the 40R,
Yeah.
so he's very aware of what has, the difficulty. And that actually having that committee actually helps us at the Department of Housing also, that we're.
Oh, no, I think we
collaborating
were
with.
used as a model statewide
Right,
for how we
right.
handled the applications for the 40Bs. But it took an inordinate amount of time and resources,
did.
and human resources and volunteers, and Mr. Pierce was a big part of it also from the planning commission
Right.
standpoint, so,
But no,
we have a little break right now, but that little break in 20 years goes by very quickly.
Yep. So,
I was.
Or 15
okay,
years.
I was remiss because I have 2 representatives from the Finance Committee here, the Vice Chair, and a representative from the Finance Committee. Would you like to be heard relative to this article? I know you haven't formally discussed the articles, but if you have input from the Finance Committee.
I could ask one question, where would the forward-going budget line item be, this department? So if you're looking at a recurring expense of $10,000, the way we fight for this stuff was, where do we expect that to come from?
I would recommend that it goes on the planning commission's budget, line up for, because to me, it's gonna fall under their umbrella, and,
We will probably discuss this on our meeting on Wednesday. My personal feeling on this right now is that it is a bit premature, and I have sensitivity to what you're talking about, Steve, and what Mr. Nasseri has said. But I don't think a difference of 8 months between now and next town meeting would have a really negative effect. And if we want to get in on this thing in June, I'm sure we would be able to. And a loss of 8 months, and by then we've got more positive plans, and we can really see what we're gonna get for the money.
I think the only problem, if I heard Danielle correctly, is that if they don't get enough to sign on, it doesn't come to fruition and
Well,
it doesn't
they're
go.
not
And I
gonna
think
sign
it's
on,
a
they're
worthy,
probably
I think it's a
not gonna
worthy
do it.
undertaking, and I think we should participate in it if there's something in it for us. But if we don't at least indicate through an appropriation that we're willing to talk to them about it, it's never gonna come to fruition. And you're not gonna have the resources of MAPC devoted towards part of our problem here.
I share Chris's concern. I think it's gonna be hard to get your fair share and direct the resources towards our needs, and you might be able to look at spending that same amount of dollars at a targeted effort to work on our own programs. If, I think that might be more favorable
I
than
agree.
entertain a proposal like that. I don't know that it shouldn't be worked on. I don't know that we'll be able to direct this collaborative group that well. As a minority.
So my issue, and we've all said it, is, we don't know what the scope of services are they're providing for us for this amount of money, and I'm never in favor of, allocating money or spending money towards something we don't know what the scope of services. However, that being said, if we can get assurance that if we allocated the $13,000 at town meeting, that we wouldn't sign on until we further looked into it and got more information on it, I could be swayed.
Yeah, and I think the collaborative decision between the planning commission and the board of selectmen is the right venue.
So, the source of funding for this is free cash?
It is.
We're taking $13,000 of free cash, we're scrambling for every dollar. I just don't think it's a wise use of funds. Not at this point in time.
And again, we're talking about some other articles down here too, though.
Oh, I know.
Where, to me, from a prioritization standpoint, this
we're
exceeds
gonna
some of the
get
other
them.
ones.
Yeah, we're gonna get them.
I know, this exceeds, to me, the prioritization of this, and addressing this, and allocating the money, whether we spend it or not, but allocating it right now is far more important than something else we may be proposing.
Mr. Fogel?
Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, if we allocate it and don't use it, just goes back to free cash next year.
It takes a vote at
Right,
town meeting.
no, I know.
No, it doesn't.
No?
No.
Put it back in.
What?
If you don't, not to put it back in?
No.
If you're not gonna go forward with the project.
No, but it's an article, so.
Right, but it's not a capital project, so we can close any articles out that are done and they close to free cash.
Oh, you can without another vote? Okay.
One more question. Sudbury's doing the same thing, right? And they're the lead?
I think they are the lead.
And have you had any discussion with them to see if it's been a successful?
I haven't spoken to Sudbury. Our MAPC representative, who has held up the Sudbury example as a good example for that region, has said that they've been very happy. There have been other communities where it hasn't worked out as well. I mean, I would be happy to get more information from other communities about their experiences and also more up-to-date, scope of services. I don't know if you had seen a draft scope at any point earlier on in this process, but if that were helpful.
Mr. Messeri?
We've sat around this table in the past trying to push various activities in the town into regionalization. And this is a perfect example of an opportunity to be into a regionalization type of approach to dealing with an issue and to be gaining some resources from a state agency. I think to put the placeholder in to guarantee that if things turn out to be, once they define exactly what they're gonna do and we wanna be on board, we can, versus waiting until June to find out when other communities have either moved forward or not enough communities have stepped up and it's a dead issue, I think might be a mistake. So I view this as an opportunity to put a placeholder in, wait and see what happens. And I can support it on that basis, provided we have the opportunity, as discussed, to make a final yea or nay on going forward.
Mr. Fode has a good idea.
I'm gonna amend the motion, make a friendly amendment to the motion that we recommend appropriating the money pending it coming back to the selectmen for, I don't know if you can do it in a warrant article?
This is what our recommendation is going to be. We're recommending it subject to Board of Selectmen approval of signature of the contract.
Can you do that with a warrant article, Mr. Valiakonis?
That's our recommendation.
No, but this is on recommending the warrant article
Right.
as is, not with putting a condition on it. It's not part of, well, Mr. Valiakonis, you care to weigh in on that?
The warrant has already gone to print, so it simply states that the warrant recommendation will be made at town meeting. You can state that it's recommended as part of your verbal report to include what Selectman Fode had proposed. I do want to add that a provision such as this, council as opined, requires an intermunicipal agreement. We all know that intermunicipal agreements require the approval of the Board of Selectmen. So I'm sure they'll be recommended to the CPC to review the detail and then be back before you as a formality as to whether you want to approve it or not.
then I'll withdraw my amendment.
Mr. Briscoe?
Thank
I
you.
really am struggling with this one a lot, but I am a big fan of trying to get some regionalization going on. But I don't think this is the best step and best priority for us as a town. I really think we have some other areas we can use this money if we really want to take the same amount of money and focus on regionalization. We've been talking about our dog officer, regionalizing that with other towns, our health department. I'm gonna vote against this because I just feel from a regionalization standpoint, this isn't falling in my priority list. I think there are some critical areas in town that we could use this money to invest to get our regionalization going and make some improvements in our services that we could see right away, and then give you an opportunity to see how this plays out. June town meeting's gonna come up again, maybe we can readdress it by then.
Ms. McKnight? No, go ahead.
Just in terms of the timeline, I completely understand all the points you just made. I do think that June would be too late. I think that it would have to be early next year that we would have to actually commit the money. So I just to put that.
And I don't believe that's true, because our money's as good as anyone else's, and I think they would take our money now or they'd take it later. I can't imagine them turning away our money. I just, in this day and age when money is so hard to come by. But you may be right, but I'm just giving you my opinion on that. I'm not as worried about it as you are.
Go ahead, you don't have to be so shy.
The way that they would be establishing this regional housing services office would be by hiring someone. So that person would be hired with a particular scope of services, salary, number of hours, and I'm sure you're right that they would take our money. But at the same time, I do worry that the way that this employee's scope of services, or if that's the model they choose to go, would possibly have to drastically change. And I don't know honestly whether they would accommodate us. You may be right that it would not be too late to jump in, but that's been my impression, that it would be hard.
Thank you.
I concur with Mr. Prisco. This isn't my vision of what we think about it in terms of regionalization. So, not in favor of it. Mr. Hebert?
One final question, Bob. We keep revisiting this 40B thing, and a question I asked earlier, apparently this is gonna happen. We need 40 units, okay? And I was talking about what kind of construction we're gonna do down the road. So apparently this is gonna happen. What are you gonna allow? Is it gonna be single-family homes, or are we gonna see homes that are?
I think you go.
What exactly we're talking about as far as 40B?
I think you'll see a mixture. Sounds like they've designated areas where they'll allow duplex. Mr. Hayden's talked about an area in which a developer's coming in to build a number of homes and taking the existing home as a single-family home. That'll be towards this affordable housing allotment. Little Meadow is another one. I believe that's single-family as well. So you can only see a mixed.
Would they tolerate it not being bought, building sort of thing?
They can't, by state law, they have to build a building so it fits into the surrounding environment. So that building will be smaller, but it'll be built with the same architectural details, basically, as a subdivision will be. So it fits into that area.
It depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about housing that we would be planning for as a community, we would, receive all kinds of input from people as to the path that we would be taking in terms of creating an affordable housing strategy. When we talk about 40B, what we're talking about is if we don't get to our 10% through planning of our own devices and creating units on our terms, then we are vulnerable to 40B projects coming in, and if that happens, they can do pretty much whatever they want. So then the town has no control, and that's why we struggle to find ways to gain some control in planning for affordable housing, because if we don't get to that 10%, which we may not get there, we might have a 40B that could come in next week. That could be something that people don't want to see.
Under your plan, you said that as long as it fits with the environment, how many people are we talking about in like even a smaller building? It's a building, 20 people?
If it's a 40B, it could be, they don't have to listen to the zoning code.
What I was talking about, sir, is what we're actually doing now. That one.
Right, but would you accept a building?
We don't have the choice to accept. It goes to, the zoning board of appeals gets the charge of trying to allow, they don't allow it, want to allow it, but they end up having to give the permit to build a 40B, and they can only go so far in asking the proponent how he's gonna, the way the thing's gonna look and how they're built, and how close to the sidelines they get. Because what ends up happening is state law says that they can supersede our zoning. So that's why it goes.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Mr. Hebert, I think we give you latitude of the floor, but I'm gonna stop that discussion right now. It's just slightly off topic in terms of this article that we're dealing with, so hope you don't take offense to that. Mr. Fode? It's 9 o'clock.
All right, yep. Just one last thing. I'm not totally convinced this is the route we want to go, but with time being an issue as far as getting on board, and the fact that we do have the last crack at turning this down, I think I'm going to vote in favor of appropriating the money and then deciding what we want to do with it later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything further?
Yeah, just clarification, we're not looking at 40 units, and within 15 years, you're looking at 440 units that we're probably going to be needing. But in relation to the specific proposal here, I think it's important that if we're going to have any say and have positive impact and some real return for our dollars, you need to get in on the ground floor. And when we put the money up and appropriate it, then we have something to talk to them about. And I think this just gives us the opportunity to do it.
I don't-
And again, we don't have to spend it.
I don't object to getting into the ground floor, but the foundation hasn't even been formed yet. So with that, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
3-2, motion carries to recommend. Moving to Article 12, which is to appropriate money for design and feasibility study for municipal solar installation. Mr. Valiakonis, has the town yet received a proposal?
We're still waiting for a price quote. The amount that I've been told verbally is $25,000. That's the number that I'm recommending to the board.
How much?
$25,000.
CPC, care to weigh in on this particular article, or do you have enough information yet to do so?
Right, we haven't brought this before the board for the appropriation. We don't have enough information other than, we did speak about creating the zoning article, which is later.
Right.
And within that, when we were discussing that, we also were talking about the viability of solar, and being the New England area, which is overcast often like today. We're not sure how much that's gonna bring back to us. $25,000 is to do a study to see what you can put in, where you can put it in, and what the return's gonna be. Some of the numbers that we saw did not make sense to us on the return on the investment.
What's the Finance Committee? I know you haven't had an opportunity to, you probably just heard the number yourself, so.
We've had preliminary discussions, but we'll take it up tomorrow night. I think given what we discussed for $13,000, we're probably twice as skeptical for 25 on this.
Mr. Prisco?
Mr. Chairman, I would actually, I was gonna actually suggest to the board that we pass over this article, because I just think we're way ahead of the game on this one. We don't even know what we haven't even seen a budget, a revenue plan. We haven't received any proposals or any much more information than that. I don't think we should even make a recommendation tonight one way or another. The only thing I suggest is we pass over. So I'd like to make a motion to pass over Article 12.
Can we, do you mind if I-
Second.
Go right ahead. If you wanna, that's fine.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, further discussion. Mr. Valiakonis, RMLD, given their recent change in general manager, they're not in a position to be any sort of partner or consultant at this present time? Is that my understanding?
They're interested in the project. However, they have not indicated whether they would commit to it. The intent of this money is to put the money toward a feasibility study, to develop a budget and a revenue plan, and determine whether it's cost-effective. We would not know, based upon the site and the location, whether it's cost-effective. As I've previously reported to the board, if it's not, then the project stops, and we don't spend another dollar. But what the intent of this is to look at a creative way of raising revenue. I believe that it's a renewable use of town property. Certainly in my position, it's better than selling town property. And it results in the town receiving revenue, potential revenue over a period of time. And as I reported to the board previously, I support the project. I think it makes sense. I think there are a number of communities that are looking alternative revenue sources, looking at ways of generating clean energy. This proposal represents that opportunity. Again, if it's not feasible, it doesn't proceed. The intent of the project is to have it funded entirely through the revenues that are generated. So it would not cost the taxpayers any money.
And without having any written proposal in front of us, I don't know what the scope of services would be in terms of feasibility study. So I think it makes sense to pass over. So I would vote in favor of the motion as proposed. Yes. Mr. O'Leary.
Again, once again, I think this is an an opportunity that should be looked at and addressed. What we have is, we're already talking about some zoning changes in order to accommodate them, because we can't keep them out. And I think if we're going to do that, I think that the town should put itself in the best position to position these things, not just from a zoning standpoint, but if we're gonna use some town-owned land, to have some recurring revenue and some renewable energy resources. Without the feasibility study, we don't know where we're going or where we're heading. You know, we're gonna be putting ourselves in a position of reacting to private entrepreneurs putting forth proposals, potentially, to place them somewhere in our community. This may be something that we want to move forward on. It may not be. I mean, just coming down Andover, I think I see a farm, these things on Route 93. I'm starting to see them crop up in more and more communities. So obviously, there's some cost effectiveness with it. Maybe there's some grant money associated with it. Again, I'm not sure. But to just pass it over right now because we don't happen to have a proposal in front of us right now, I think could be a mistake. I would suggest that we, at best, postpone a recommendation until town meeting rather than recommending pass over right now. In the next couple of weeks, maybe some more information will be coming forward. I don't know. But I think, once again, we should be investing in these types of initiatives looking forward. So I'm not in favor of passing it over at this particular point in time.
Mr. Hayden?
This article and the zoning article, I don't think are really interconnected.
They're not.
So I just
I agree.
put that out there for other folks.
Anyone else? No? On the motion to pass over, all in favor of passing over?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
4-1, motion carries. 14. Going to Article 15, amend code zoning bylaw, retaining walls, special permit required. Has CPC had an opportunity to review, take a position, whether formally or informally, concerning this?
We haven't met since we got the actual article.
I think it's
We actually
scheduled
are
for the-
meeting.
Tomorrow night we're meeting.
We have a regular meeting tomorrow night, and then on the first,
First we've
we'll have
scheduled.
we'll have a public hearing on that. So we haven't discussed it as a group, so I can't put out a recommendation tonight.
Thank you, appreciate that. Board members? Mr. Misery?
I'd make a motion that we continue with our original vote of town meeting.
Do we have
Unless
to
we
do
hear
that?
something
Do we have to
soon.
affirm that, or we can just skip it?
We're recommending town meeting. That's
Voting
right.
to recommend
Right,
town
yeah.
meeting, okay. Moving to Article 16, amend code zoning bylaws, Article 17, site plan review, Section 200-99 appeals. I know late this afternoon, we received an opinion from town council. I reviewed it as I was sitting here at like 6:15. And my quick review, Mr. Valiakonis, of town council's opinion based upon his discussions with the Attorney General's office is that the legal process is an appeal of a special permit decision by CPC goes to the Superior Court.
Correct.
Okay, which is not the process that we have been following. And I'm disappointed that that's the opinion, because I think the process we do undertake makes sense. But have I captured it correctly?
You have, just to add, for clarification purposes, the reason why it goes to court is in 2010, the zoning bylaw was amended to make site plan approval subject to a special permit, or it would actually represent a special permit granted through the CPC. As a result of that designation, that triggers the requirement that any appeal go before the courts versus to the ZBA. Council would have also indicated at the time the bylaw was reviewed by the Attorney General back in 2010, they would not have looked at the section that's being offered up for amendment at this town meeting. So it's logical that they would not have looked at what the appeal section was, which was in a different section. Thank you.
Board members, questions? Mr. Thomas? Mr. O'Leary?
I would recommend that we pass over this article and address it in June, because if that's the case, I think the process that we have in place works extremely well. I think if we can get it resolved at the local level, we should, rather than spending money in court. If that's the case, we should put it back to where it was before and put the special permitting under the ZBA and make sure that the CPC is included in the site plan review prior to the ZBA. Make them the first CPC first stop with the site plan review process, then go to the ZBA for a final step in approval. Most communities, as Mr. Pierce indicated to us, but in most communities, it is the zoning board of appeals that issues the special permit, not the planning commission. We're somewhat unique in that process. We have a system that works extremely well. It minimizes the amount of litigation that we've have been involved in. We have two boards that work very well together, and I think we should try and maintain that and give people ample opportunity to vet their proposals before both boards, before we get an appeal to Superior Court. So, to me, leave the status quo until we can actually get it right. My opinion.
Anyone else care to weigh in? No? Mr. Valiakonis, do you have anything further to add?
Other than the position that's taken by the CPC is in accordance with what town council's recommendation has been verified through the AG's office.
I'm going, Mr. Fode, go ahead, I'm looking for.
I'm just curious what the repercussions are for the town if we continue to do it the way we are, as opposed to abiding by what the law is.
It's only, Mr. Chairman, I would guess that it would only be based upon whatever proposals come forward and if someone decides to appeal the process. And to date, that hasn't necessarily happened, so. How many more proposals for site plan review are gonna be heard between now and June? I don't know. Very few. And to me, I think we need to have a good, healthy discussion as to, in light of the opinion that we have, how do we want it to work here in North Reading?
Mr. Prisco?
I think the way things are working right now, working pretty well. What we're talking about here is a lot of typos, a lot of corrections. I don't think that, what we're gonna approve at town meeting is gonna be a major.
I think you're talking about, you're on the wrong article.
16.
Oh, we're on 16?
16.
I thought you said 17. Oh, okay. Sorry.
This is a biggie.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I was waiting on this one. Never mind.
Could have been waiting that, on the edge of the seat.
Sorry. Go on.
No,
Oh, yeah, no, I want to talk to this one. One second, let me get my notes. Go ahead.
No, as I've said the last two meetings, the process we have seems to work. If there's somehow we can make it work as it's presently constituted, I'd be in great favor of that. Is it, and I've asked this in the last meeting, is it because we designate these things special permits? Right. So because of that, according to statute, your decision, if appealed, goes to.
Right, and the reason why we changed it to special permit was so that site plan review had teeth. What happened prior with site plan review was basically the developer said, okay, we'll do it. None of it had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if they meet these certain things, then it's as right. If you go back the way it was, where zoning, the ZBA appeal was legal, and then, of course, if you want to appeal the ruling of the ZBA, you go to the
Right, but if we
general court.
are able to do something as Mr. O'Leary has suggested, if that's the only process,
Yeah, where's the
right?
rub?
Where's the hump? You're able to weigh in, ZBA issues the decision, right? So we have both boards
You
work
have
pretty
to
well
You
together.
have to reconstitute that to that part of our zoning.
Right, and I think that's what Mr.
But
O'Leary,
if in between now and June,
right,
and if
Right.
that
which is 8 months
carries,
away.
it is 8 months. We've had 3 or 4 that have already come through this year. And other than, so if something comes through and somebody appeals that to the ZBA, and the ZBA's finding is then appealed by someone else,
Mhm. Mhm.
the first person is basically, can be damaged because they went to the ZBA instead of going where they should have gone, which is to the,
But you've
Superior Court.
been operating this way since when?
we haven't been appealed.
Since
No.
2010.
Exactly, I think Mr. O'Leary's point, we have 8 months, okay, to try to do it, which has worked best for everyone in this community. To try to keep some semblance of that process in place. And I think if we can accomplish that, that's what we should endeavor to do.
It's been very difficult for the town clerk, right?
We both are both having difficulties.
They have
honestly.
difficulties, so. if
I
you
understand, in
can-
terms of the timeline, I understand, in terms of the time you have to appeal
Right,
things.
so
I understand
it
that.
takes people, it takes businesses an extra 10 days of waiting period. to
I
get-
understand, but if we make this change, site plan review approval is you, and then from there, if you don't like it, you go into Superior Court. And it eliminates 2 boards weighing in and trying to get, which often happens,
compromise.
is some sort of compromise from a developer. Right? Would you agree that process works fairly well? Correct?
It has worked,
Okay.
because
But
we, go ahead.
I will say, okay, the way I see it, the problem that we're having right now is that I fear that the way our process is set up is misleading and could lead an abutter to waive their rights of an appeal if a court should find that the process as we have it in place right now doesn't work. It's true
I
that-
think we would, my honest opinion is I think we'd lose on that issue because the way we have it set up. I don't see an appeals, a Superior Court bouncing anyone who would appeal a decision that comes out of ZBA, because that's the process now. Because of the way the town has it set up presently, I don't think they're gonna
If anything,
tell
they would, I
anyone.
guess if anything, they would remand it back to the town for another hearing and then,
I agree.
Calendar over again.
you know, because people may have been misled.
Right.
Not intentionally, but misled as to what their rights were, and if someone were to appeal what's going on, my guess is the court will remand it back to the town for further consideration, to run it through the process according to Hoyle, and then, they're not gonna want to do it. They're gonna ask you to fix it. Yeah. And again, I think at this particular juncture, you know, knowing what we know over the next 8 months, we will probably advise people, and we need to have a discussion as to really what do we, I think the weighing in of the 2 boards is critical. I think site plan review at the CPC is good, and I think the site plan review at the CPC level and forwarding those recommendations, just like the 40B subcommittees to the ZBA, they get incorporated into the decision and moved on. And, which is what it was, which is what it used to be.
I think that we have 3 options for how we could go with this. One is, we could keep site plan review with the CPC as a special permit as it is right now and change it as we're proposing. 2, we could go back to not having a special permit required for site plan review, which would cause us to lose some of our authority as far as design review with the CPC. And have the appeal still be to the ZBA, as administrative site plan review is typically handled in most towns that do site plan review that way. Or 3, we could have the special permit be granted by the ZBA, which I don't think most towns do that anymore. But, I mean, those are the 3 options as I see it right now. And
I'd like to take the time to try to see if we can devise a way in which we comply with the statute, but allow for us to do what we have in place right now. And I don't know whether we can or we can't, but I'd rather take the time to do it. I know we can't get that done by October town meeting. I know this article doesn't do that. I think we all agree that the process we have in place right now works.
Well, yeah, I understand what
Right?
you're saying, but there's only been one item before the ZBA since this has happened. So I don't know how it works, because no one's appealed our decisions prior. That's, you follow my, when they come to us, we're pretty open and listen and try to solve issues with the neighbors, with the businesses, and with the proponent of whatever we're reviewing,
Mm-hmm.
so that we come out with a happy medium. And maybe we've only been lucky, or we do well at the planning issues of that site, so that no one's been harmed, or thought they've been harmed, so that they've appealed it. So, you know, I don't know if we have any real history to say that works with the ZBA reviewing it, you know, because it works, you know, that's one issue.
It
So
would be
the
the
only-
same thing as the plan number 2, is the way it was before.
Yes,
The site plan
before
review went to the CPC, but it was for permitting only, it wasn't a special permit, and then the appeal was the ZBA.
Right.
That worked? That worked fine?
it did, I will say this, there is an advantage to having the CPC be a special permit granting authority for site plan review, and that is that it is not any longer, you know, an as of right, you know, towns that are very concerned with concept design and aesthetics and maintaining good controls over sites, who are more abutter friendly versus more developer friendly, so to speak. That's the way they do it usually with a special permit, because it does give the town a lot more control for things that might be objectionable.
Why would there be less control if the ZBA, you know, if the CPC comes up with a site plan review and is more butter-friendly than developer-friendly, it comes up with their plan, you know, and so this is what it is, and the developer then has to appeal it to the ZBA. What would make the ZBA any less friendly?
Oh, you mean have it not be a special permit?
Have it not be a special permit,
You
because
know,
then it becomes a special permit once it's appealed.
No, I don't think it would.
Well, the decision of the ZBA is only,
Oh, the decision of the ZBA would be appealable, that's true, but in terms of getting a good site design, it does give the CPC a really good tool for denying things that we think are really pretty terrible, or, you know, also having more control.
I
over
guess
what-
I'm missing the point as to if you issue a site plan, whether it's by special permit or not,
Right.
you know, that's the plan, that's what they have to build it to, those are the specifications they have to build it to.
They have to make fewer changes. If we go back to doing just administrative site plan review, they can come in and say, this is our plan, this is what we want to do. And we go through and we can make suggestions and we say, we would like to see this, but really they can say no. And we can't really deny it. If they've met all of the requirements for submittals of information, they can't really deny it. It gives us a good tool where we have objectionable.
But if you approve a site plan without the special permit, you approve it and they buy into it, that's the plan they have to abide by.
Yes, it is.
That is the plan they have to abide by. If they don't like the terms and conditions that you've suggested, they can go to the zoning board of appeals. So it has the same amount of teeth. It just brings it to that second appellate level, which is local rather than Superior Court. You know, so still like the idea of review at the local level before we get into litigation. So,
I do as well, but I don't like giving up the teeth.
Yeah, and I don't see it
So I
having the
need
same amount of
to,
teeth.
I need to have a better understanding of that.
It's,
And I know Mr. Jones wants to weigh in, so before you, I'm gonna, Mr. Jones?
Is it my turn? Thank you. First, I agree and prefer it be kept at the local level. And I can say this because you're assuming there's a higher level of logic at the state level, and that isn't necessarily true. But the other concern that I have is if the more this goes to a state level, our legal budget's gonna climb. Because you're gonna have to have representation. So are you prepared for that? So I think you should do whatever you have to do at the local level in changing the protocols or procedures or whatever to keep it that way. In any case, a plaintiff has the right to appeal regardless of what we say, beyond the second appellate court. They're gonna go to the third one, so you're not precluding that for any developer or plaintiff. But meanwhile, I prefer to see it at the local level. Keep our legal budget where it belongs and not necessarily assume that the state is more logical.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anything further, board members? Here to change the position we've taken at the last meeting, which was to recommend a town meeting, or keep it the same? What's the wishes of,
I'm prepared to, as well, we're not sponsoring it, so I wouldn't be recommending it. And I would suggest passing it over. So I'm prepared to vote that way. I don't care how the board wants to do it. I mean, I don't think, we can get up and make a motion to pass over, or just get up and make a motion not to recommend. CPC's the sponsor of the article. I'm not in favor of what's proposed here, and I am in favor of passing it over right now. And I think internally, we can advise people well in relation to any applications that come in from now until we come up with another proposal in June.
I concur. Mr. Prisco?
Here's my only worry with this whole thing. You sit outside, right, not being a selectman, as a resident. I look at this and I see CPC. CPC is an elected body in this town. We elect them. The ZBA isn't. They're an appointed board. So now, it's almost, you have these appointees that we can handpick whoever we want to sit there, basically superseding an elected board that the residents put there. It has me a little concerned. Just, speaking frankly. So, you got me a little worried.
But that's the role they play under state statute. They're the pressure relief valve for zoning. They're the zoning board of appeals. So any zoning matters that come up, that get appealed, they go before the ZBA. I mean, that's how it's set up statutorily. They're the pressure relief valve.
Okay.
No, I understand you, but.
I'm speaking for the resident, as a resident. I think it's something y'all should think about.
Unless I hear otherwise, we can stay with our recommendation to recommend a town meeting, unless I hear a motion otherwise. Mr. Passero?
Just, have we opened up Pandora's box by approaching the Attorney General on this issue?
No, because I think it was done in a vacuum, so to speak.
they don't know it was us who asked.
Okay.
Unless they're viewing us on cable this evening. Transcript on Thursday.
We're pretty popular on YouTube.
We're under the radar screen.
Mr. Chair, I move not to recommend.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, and I have a second, not to recommend Article 16. Any further discussion? Can I ask, I do, if we vote in favor not to recommend, is this an article that, if it does get defeated, cannot come back for a period of 1 year? Mr. Jones, do you have the answer to that?
I think that any article. If you want to be on the safe side, sir, you would pass over.
I think that any article, if brought up and defeated, needs a year to come back.
No, only if it has a monetary.
Well, we
That's not
received
being-
a recent,
Ruling.
I don't know if it was a ruling, but I believe that was my understanding until about a month ago, in which our charter states that any article that's defeated has to get approval by FinCom
Right.
before it gets
That's
back
what the charter
on
states.
the warrant within a year.
So FinCom would want to have the situation resolved. They don't?
Well,
Because, by the way.
I think it's probably in our best interest to pass over, to give us an opportunity, 8 months, to try to do it what works best for
I
us.
withdraw my motion.
Thank you. You
And
withdraw the second?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend passing over Article 16.
We have a motion to pass over, do I have a second?
Recommend
Second.
passing over.
Further discussion, Mr. Prisco?
What are the risks that we're taking by passing this article over?
I do still fear that if we, okay, well, I guess the real risk really is that our office doesn't really know how to explain the appeals process when someone comes in for site plan review. That is for sure, you know, a day-to-day problem that we have when we review site plan review. But as far as risks, legal risks, I'm not a lawyer, but I do fear, and based on my discussions with town council, they share our concern that when you present a bylaw that is conflicted, as this one is, not everyone understands what the appeals process is, and someone may end up inadvertently waiving their right to appeal. I don't know that for sure. I'm not an attorney, but that's my personal.
The way I see it, we created the confusion. So if someone, well, I think the way it's written is they have 30 days to appeal CPC to ZBA. There's a 20-day right of appeal to go to Superior Court. So the one issue that has been appealed most recently, my understanding was, that may be in a little different posture because well, put it this way, if someone appeals to this is my opinion, I'm no legal authority, but my opinion, if someone were to appeal the CPC decision within 20 days to CPC, and then or this ZBA decision goes contrary to them, then they take it to Superior Court. If the town were to then take the position, you waived your right to come to Superior Court, Superior Court's gonna say,
Oh, I don't think it would be up to us to waive anybody's rights. I think the court would say, you let the 20-day clock pass.
no. What I'm saying is, that they'll say, town, you created the confusion, you gave them another opportunity to go before a local board, so no, they haven't waived it. They would have the time allotment post-decision by ZBA to appeal to Superior Court. So in that regard, I don't see there a harm to us. I see this confusion now that needs to be rectified. I agree with that. But I don't see that there's a harm to the town, nor do I see anyone being harmed by a Superior Court by the confusion created by the town. We do have to solve it.
Yeah, I think if we properly advise people to perfect their interest in Superior Court within 20 days and still go through the appeal process here, which again would end up being a compromise or a settlement prior to going to court.
There is an issue about appealing to the ZBA and appealing to Superior Court. As soon as you appeal to the Superior Court, all work stops.
Actually, I have an update on this.
Oh, this has
Yes, I
changed?
do. It was my understanding that the 30-day appeal to the ZBA did not stop construction. Under normal circumstances, I've been told by the building inspector that yes, it would. The reason it didn't stop the school construction is because that was an exempt use anyway, and we couldn't have stopped it. So
Another issue, but.
yeah, it's another issue, but my understanding
would
now
stop work?
is what he would do is, he would send out a routing slip for a project. We would not sign off on the routing slip, we would note instead that it's under appeal to the ZBA and the project would pass.
Okay.
So that's the latest that
All
I've
right,
heard
because
today.
that is an issue.
So-
If the ZBA, if appealing to the ZBA did not stop work,
It's the purpose of an appeal.
and for a purpose of an appeal, and the appeal won, that person is harmed. And, you know, because we put the issue in of a confusing appeals period, that could come back at us. Maybe, who knows?
I
It's
think
an issue we have to rectify. I think the 8 months gives us a time frame in which it's on our radar screen. We need to come up with a solution to this problem.
think in
I
that.
don't, my preference is not this particular article. If it turns out that it has to be, well, then it has to be. But that's where I stand.
I think clearly we're in that position where we just say, we need the time. I
Okay.
mean,
On the motion to pass over, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to pass over carries unanimous. Oh, I have that one for town meeting, great. Captures all,
Should, I don't mean to take away anything from Michael here, but on that last one on the appropriation for the regional shared housing project, Mike voted in the negative. Do we want someone who was in the affirmative support presenting it? At 11. It was 3-2. It was yourself and Michael in opposition.
what are you afraid of?
I'm not afraid of anything, but usually when the Board of Selectmen is sponsoring an article, it's usually a proponent that would make the motion and make the argument and give the state the position of the board.
good point. Mr. O'Leary, you want to think that?
I don't mind, but Mr. Misery or Mr. Fode, doesn't matter to me.
Which
Please.
article is that now?
It's 11.
11.
Mr. O'Leary, please. I think you'll do a fine job with that one. Moving quickly to Article 17, amend zoning, sorry, Article 17, amend code zoning bylaw, Article 22, Section 200-127, capital C.
We already voted. I think we actually did the last.
We recommend.
Yep, CPC's here, though, right? It's only typographical?
And we voted already.
And we voted to
Yeah.
recommend.
Yeah, that's what next two.
We want to switch seats?
That's fine. We're doing awesome.
Article 18, amend code zoning bylaws. Article 23, wind energy facilities bylaw.
Again, typographical changes,
Just
not no
typographical.
changes of substance.
We are good.
Article 19, amend code zoning bylaws. Article 20, Berry Center Residential Smart Growth Overlay District. Same, just typographical. We voted to recommend it in our last meeting. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it, you as well as your members. Going back now to Article 1, we recommended at the last town meeting, last meeting, is that correct?
Yep.
Committee reports.
Prior year bills, I believe we now have a dollar amount associated with that article.
We did 861.
861, the recommendation is from free cash.
Move to recommend.
We've already recommended it.
Did we?
Yeah, we already recommended.
Recommended that?
So it's free cash.
Article 3, fund FY 2013 snow and ice deficit.
Recommend.
Yeah, we recommended that, right?
You recommend, it's a source of funding is the issue?
Source of funding will be either through FEMA reimbursement, of which we are anticipating a reimbursement for $139,294, or we will pass over the article if those monies are not received, and we will account for them as part of our tax rate recap sheet. We've already budgeted this amount of money on the recap.
294, 139, 294?
139,294.
We had before, I thought it was 176, 900.
That's what I had.
That was my notes from the last one.
That's correct, and the federal government reserves the right to give it, and they reserve the right to take it. They've disqualified some costs, so the amount that we're anticipating is 139,294.
But in terms of recommending, not recommending, as of our meeting on Thursday, I thought we had to take a position,
Yeah.
So we have to-
certain position depending upon how it was going to be funded, correct?
And we will not know until right up until the date of town meeting, depending upon whether these funds are received. If the funds are not received, then the recommendation will be to pass over. If the funds are received, then what we will do is we'll fund a portion of the snow deficit from the proceeds of the FEMA funds, and then the rest will be added to the tax rate recap sheet.
Of which we're reserved
$250.
$250.
Last meeting, I thought we were gonna take care of it regardless of the FEMA money came in or not.
That's right.
We could, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to track our FEMA money to go. The FEMA costs were from the February 2013 blizzard, so they are attributable to this snow deficit. What we're trying to do is we're trying to track our expenses that way.
Okay. And can we carry it out till June?
Yeah, we can. We can carry this to October town meeting and not until after October town meeting.
So we do have to address it at
We have to address it at October town meeting one way or another.
We have to raise it on the recap, so.
Okay. So it's either gonna be an entire amount or a small portion?
Right.
So basically, we,
110,000.
Steve, we held that 250 in our overall revenue budget plan. So the money's there. So
So we're not gonna pass over? We are gonna-
I don't see us getting the FEMA reimbursement anytime soon. You know, they're telling communities, and I spoke with Mark, that, you know, late October. So I recommend that it's passed over and we fund it through the revenue plan, through the tax recap. But we can leave it in the rare chance that we do receive the reimbursement.
And the pitfall of just, we have the 250 to cover the 250 is what? What's the?
I think that's the appropriate means by which to satisfy this,
Correct.
unless the FEMA money comes in. The FEMA money, we can appropriate the funds for the FEMA money to go towards this and use
We're using
the
most of
balance
our reserve.
out of that 250 that we have in the budget.
I know, but she doesn't think we're gonna get the FEMA money in time, or for time until the end of October.
Right, so the preferred way to satisfy it would be through the 250, which we have in the budget already.
That is
Correct?
why the snow and ice deficit went down to 249,860, because at June town meeting, we appropriated free cash, the difference between the 250 we had set aside and the additional deficit that was over the 250. So we appropriated about 123,000 of free cash at June town meeting to bring the deficit down to
Just under.
250. So our plan was to raise it on the recap, but then when we found out that what we were receiving for the FEMA reimbursement, we decided that if we get that, then it would be a good idea to, you know, reduce the amount we're raising. However, it doesn't seem that we're going to receive that in time, so.
Mr. Prisco?
So what happens to the FEMA money if we go ahead and take care of this through the budget?
It flows through free cash at the end of FY14. It goes to reimbursements of a prior year in the general fund and, you know, just.
So let's just take care of it. Let's just get.
We just would not use free cash to satisfy this at this point in time.
Oh,
We use what's, we use the budget, money in the budget.
We've already allocated it. We used the total amount that was spent was, the original budget amount was 175
Correct.
or 125?
The original snow and ice budget is 175.
175. We held a 250 in reserve, and we actually spent more than that in snow and ice to the tune of 100 and something that came out of
Correct.
free cash in June.
Again, our goal in doing so is to have more money to go toward our reserves, which is in keeping with the financial plan that the town has. The more we can dedicate to our reserves, the better off we're going to be able to weather any emergencies in the future, and for financial purposes in terms of the finance committee. So that's the real reason why we wanted to utilize the FEMA monies and then hold a portion of the 250 go toward reserves.
Mr. Wolfman, for
Is
Finance
it
Committee.
possible to have the warrant state that the excess of FEMA monies not to exceed $249,000 would be appropriated?
Well, this has already gone to print, as is.
No, Alan, we need to have a specific
It's got to be a
appropriation.
dollar-specific amount.
Correct, we can't do an amount to
I'd
exceed.
like to broaden that.
We'd like to, though.
Well, I mean, that would satisfy the needs.
Mr. Messeri.
I would suggest that we just wait until town meeting to decide whether to pass it over or to appropriate money from FEMA, in fact, if it comes in. No, we already voted to
voted to
have a
recommend.
recommendation at town meeting, so.
No, I have it, we voted to recommend.
Right, I thought
We
we were just
did.
gonna pay it one way or the other, if money came in. Good.
I'm
But-
sorry, you're
but
right,
Article
you're right,
3
I'm sorry, looking at the wrong note.
But voting to recommend means we're paying it from a source other than what's in the budget. Am I correct?
Correct.
So we shouldn't take a position to recommend it this time. I think we have to undo this and just go to recommended town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to modify a recommendation on Article 3 from recommend to recommendation to be made at town meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, and Mr. Prisco, please note, stepped out to take care of a personal matter. All right, Article 4, transfer funds to Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund.
Board members, the recommendation is to transfer from free cash the sum of $300,000 into the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund. That will give us a balance of $562,239 to offset costs associated with the June 2014 town meeting, of which the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund will be used to fund debt service or payment of capital items to be determined at a later date. And keep in mind, the amount is consistent with what we have included in our fiscal 2015 revenue plan in terms of a balance that we wish to have in this account as an available fund.
Thank you, Mr. Delacutis. Finance Committee? I know you're just hearing this at this point in time, and I know you're not meeting until tomorrow night or Wednesday, but,
The more the better, there's a few worthy causes.
very good.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Messeri?
I would move that we change our recommendation at town meeting to recommend the transfer of $300,000 into the Capital Stabilization Fund,
Second.
From where?
Free cash.
free cash.
And is everyone updated on the unofficial free cash number? I appreciate the fact that our finance director and our town administrator was very conservative in terms of their estimate that they gave us a week or so ago. So the latest in terms of, it's unofficial based upon the DOR being out here last Friday, our free cash number, not yet certified, is $1,192,000.
I second your motion.
I have a motion, and I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Article 5, appropriate money.
Could I just, if I may, back on Article 3, assuming that the FEMA money doesn't come in, the source of these funds would be free cash?
No.
No.
It'll be the $250 that's in the FY14 budget
Okay.
for that purpose. Article 5, appropriate money to stabilization fund. Mr. Valiakonis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The recommendation is to transfer the sum of $110,000 from free cash. That will bring us to a balance in the stabilization fund of $2,028,488. And one of the goals that we set off when we began the budget process 9 months ago was to try to raise the stabilization fund balance incrementally to get to the 5% of net revenues that the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen has established as a goal. We believe that this is a start in that direction. More importantly, it does bring our stabilization fund up over the $2 million mark, which we think is important in terms of future borrowing and representing to the rating agencies that the town's making a commitment to build its reserves.
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bellicance, would you repeat the total for stabilization fund?
So the stabilization fund balance after the 110,000 is transferred in would be $2,028,488.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair.
I move to change our recommendation from town meeting and to recommend $110,000 as proposed by the town administrator from free cash into the stabilization fund.
I have a motion and I have a second. Finance Committee?
Well, we'll take it up on Wednesday. I'd be in favor.
Thank you. Okay. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 6, transfer of funds to other post-employment benefits liability trust fund.
Mr. Chairman, board members, administration recommends that this article be deferred until the June of 2014 town meeting. At this time, what we would like to do is we'd like to leave this town meeting with a sufficient balance in free cash. And we're cognizant of the fact that this liability is out there. However, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has committed that they will be assisting towns in recommending how they address this on a comprehensive basis going forward. As of this time, we have not seen the plan that the Commonwealth has offered to us. We believe that this liability can be addressed in the Springtown meeting after we complete the winter months and we've addressed other expenses that may be coming up in this fiscal year.
Finance Committee? Board members?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. What did finance?
Finance?
Yeah,
well,
it's agreed.
It's unofficial,
That's
it's from the vice chair.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
So it's going to pass over?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we change our recommendation at town meeting and move to pass over Article 6.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Do we have a second?
Second for the purposes of discussion.
Okay, a second for purposes of discussion. Mr. O'Leary.
Regardless of whatever the state is gonna come up with for a plan, my guess is that it will be a percentage of your liability over the next 25 years. We can calculate that ourselves and determine, we're gonna have to come up with the money anyway, and we just keep kicking this one down the road. We have a small balance in here based upon a large liability. I think we should make an effort to continue to do something. And waiting for the state probably going to look a lot older before I get a recommendation, because all they're doing with their deferred liability is putting it out to now 2040.
So they're deferring it.
So they continue to defer it out. Maybe we'll get the same benefit. If that's the case, we have to go to 2040. We have, a lot of money to make up in, what's that, 22 years. So we've got to come up with some number, some money, somehow. Anyway.
Correct, but I think if we take the approach where we have what that plan is and then designate that certain amount on an annual basis to paying it off in that time frame, we're better off doing that than throwing nickels and dimes at it as we've been doing. So we're better off waiting till after the winter to do so.
What I'd like to see happen is take this latest information from the state, or, where it's going. I would like to see a comprehensive plan based on the date of how we're going to achieve the goal. Right? Because Steve's right, we're kicking the can down the road. And we're not putting anywhere near enough in to reach the end goal. So, and maybe it's not something that you say, okay, we're going to divide that number by the number of years and we're going to put X number of dollars in each year. Maybe there's some borrowing involved, maybe there's some ramp up. But what I'd like us to do, and maybe we should set it as a goal for before June town meeting, is to actually have a plan by year what we're gonna allocate. And then commit to do it in a realistic way.
What's our current balance?
$154,475.
No, liability.
We owe-
35 or 40 million, what is it?
30.
What is it?
About approximately 38 million.
38
We're
million.
having a new study done, and it will be ready by the end of November. So it will be for period ending June 30th. And so, you know, our plan was to take that number and come up with a funding structure over all those years. And yes, we can do it ourselves very easily, so.
And we could use the money in the current account, leverage it for borrowings to get us going.
Well, and, you know, as that liability is filled, then the annual budget is decreased because you're not paying on an annual
Right.
basis for that liability. I mean, I'd like to see the whole financial analysis in front of me and the implications of it. And I think if, that's the thing we should stop kicking down the road first, is to get a full plan together.
Mr. Prisco?
I was gonna say, you know, we do have our strategic planning coming ahead of us after town meeting. And maybe we should make this one of our big discussions, part of that strategic plan, and try to incorporate all of this in, to take a serious approach at it. But I know it is a nickel and dime approach right now, but I agree with Mr. O'Leary. We should continue with our nickel and dime approach, because it's the only one we have right now. And I know we only put a little over $150,000 in there, but I think we should just continue with that trend, unless it brings in some risk. If we use that money for this, what risk are we taking?
If we have a winter, as the Farmer's Almanac predicts, we may be using it for snow removal. We don't have a ton of free cash to be throwing around,
Well, so based on what we've already allocated, we have over 800,000?
It depends on if the other below articles get funded with free cash. Potentially, we're using 512, which is less the solar feasibility study. So if everything else goes through, it will be 512, 601 being used, which leaves about 680.
Liz, I'm sorry, what's the amount?
So
Okay.
these articles
That's helpful.
listed, less the feasibility study as that was passed, the solar feasibility study as that was passed over, it's 512, 601. So 512, 601, and that leaves approximately 680, 679, 909, so.
Okay.
Great.
Then thank you for that. It's very helpful information. And if we're willing to make the commitment to at least address it when we meet for our strategic planning session, then I'm willing to accept the fact of passing these over for now.
I'm on board.
Okay.
We need to seriously address it. I think we've all expressed that, so. Okay. Have a motion to pass over?
It's been made by
Motion
Mr.
to
Surratt, second by Mr. O'Leary.
For discussion. Thank you, Mr. Fode. Glad you're still awake. Just concerned. All in favor to pass over? Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You didn't
Sorry.
give him,
No.
4-1.
4-1.
Motion still carries. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. O'Leary.
That's okay.
and I was sleeping.
Article 7, amend FY 2014 operating budget. Mr. Valiakonis.
Recommendation is for $86,930.59, and it's broken down as follows.
Excuse me, 86 what?
86,930.59.
I'm sorry, what article, number 7?
7.
All right, so that's different than.
It was 80,744 before.
Yeah.
80,744 represents the amount that is a result of the increased county retirement assessment.
Yeah.
That's an amount that we knew just after town meeting. The additional costs are for animal control, $5,482.78. And elder affairs, $703.81. Both of those would be in the form of salaries. And they're a result of some changes that we've made in the staffing of those departments by consolidating some part-time positions into full-time positions to provide reliability of service that was not there previously. So again, it would be 86,930.59, and we do have sufficient capacity to raise and appropriate these, and that's what the recommendation would be.
If it refers to the email I sent on Friday, I think it's detailed in there. It was just
Yes, it is. I apologize.
Mr.
Harris, no, Mr. Fode.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjust our recommendation from the 80,744, adding additional money for animal control line item and elderly affairs line item, bringing the total from 80,744 to $86,930.59, raise and appropriate.
Second.
A motion and a second. Before I call for vote. Finance Committee?
I expect we're going to vote favorably, but maybe we'll...
Thank you. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That one's unanimous. Article 8, appropriate funds for improvements to town hall and other municipal buildings.
A recommendation would be to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000. These are items that had been presented to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee in the spring. They were deferred because of the fact that they were not by themselves considered to be capital projects. With your permission, I'd like to defer to Mr. Carnevale and Mr. Welch to provide details in terms of the proposed use of funds.
Per my presentation last time I was here, the intent of this is for the projects that are too small to meet the capital. Building on the common flooring, fire station kitchen flooring, town hall, some flooring in town hall, and the library some flooring. And the only non-flooring one is to complete the changing of all the inside doors and here to be handicap accessible. So those are the 5 projects. John has unit prices on the carpeting and all that, so I mean, if any details where it's gonna go, he has photographs. I think a lot of you took the tour last year and you know where some of the places are with the problems.
What area of town hall?
Pardon me?
What area of town hall do you propose with this, if this gets
Well,
approved?
actually, room 14, the administrator's office, the administrative secretary's office, and I believe it's called the Selectmen secretary's office, and out to the end of the hallway, just beyond the door, so we'll cleaned up the admin end of the building.
Explain the corridor again, all the way down to the end, as far as I can see?
Just to
or-
this door.
No, it would never happen, Bob. It would most likely be...
Just to what, I missed where it ends.
Just beyond the entrance door.
Entrance door, okay. Thank you.
What was the total amount?
On the town hall flooring?
Yeah.
Town hall flooring, we're showing 15,400.
And that just covers that area?
No, not done.
Oh, sorry, go on.
There's several other areas in the building that have not, in my 15 years here, have not been done yet. The room that is the Parks and Rec's office is one, the room that is the IT service office is another, and that's it. All the rest of them have been done at least once. However, what we have is this highway areas with high traffic areas, and what I would anticipate being able to do would be to address the high, it's like high wear, but it's also the spills and stains that no amount of cleaning is gonna get the stains out after so many cups of coffee are there. So what we do is the traffic areas, what I would call common areas as opposed to individual office areas. And what we did, Mr. Crisco, is we used 2 different ways of working out budget numbers for that. One would be using the 3-foot by 3-foot tiles that are carpet tiles, which we used in the activity room for the library 4 or 5 years ago and found that they're extremely successful, although slightly more expensive. By slightly more expensive, I mean they cost about $1.40 a square foot more than the rolled carpet. But the nice thing is that when there's a spill or there's a damaged section in the floor, you can lift out a 3-foot by 3-foot piece and replace it with what I call attic stock. Typically, like when we did the library floor, we had purchased some back stock of the floor tile, so that when we have a problem with the floor, we can take out a piece and replace a piece. Never actually works out, you take out a piece to replace a piece, because the spill never lands on just one tile, but you have a few pieces so they can work around that.
So the town clerk's office has already been done, and the finance office has already been done?
Oh, yeah.
Those are all new carpet?
Well, new to the extent that if I had a record with me, I could tell you what year it was. So many of them were 10 years ago. I've been at this for 15, and I would have to say for 12 to 15, we've been doing carpet replacement in this building. Because you never can do the whole building, and
No.
plus, it's an interesting dynamic, but the logistics of it is, you know, to do this room, I can remember you worked with me one time, we moved everything around in this room.
I don't disagree with this room, but I think there's a lot more activity on the financial side over there every day.
Absolutely.
That I think that would take more of a priority to get changed than even in here.
Well,
That's
that
my
area,
opinion.
that area in the finance office, has a lot of wear, but it could be something that could come up in the next year or the year after that. It's not that bad because it's a less high traffic area. This area, the admin end of this building is this very high traffic area. And as you know, with other, like school committee meetings taking place here and so on and so forth, it's just the level of traffic is increasing, not decreasing. And I feel personally, as superintendent of buildings, I don't know how it can be personal, but you look at it and you say, do we want to have a very professional appearance as people come into this end of the building, or keep going, you know?
No, we do, but my opinion too is the people that work here every day have to be here all day long, and we should make it a clean environment for them.
Did you see the article in the Globe this weekend about the State House, and the mice in the State House that ate the wires because the people that work in the State House eat food and leave it in the bags on their counters and desks? We have this problem everywhere you go in life, you have that problem. I'd love to cure it, truly I would, but it was quite amusing. I don't know if anyone else did see that, but it was.
I saw it.
So, okay, just so you're talking about the administrative end of town hall, what else is there? The building on the common, what portion of the building on the common?
The building on Common, Steve, is actually, I'm sorry, Mr. O'Leary, is actually the first floor area because it's where the senior center activities are. Second floor isn't getting as much use.
So this is a senior center, okay.
And really the priority is the whole first floor area, and people eat there, and elderly people
Yep,
reside
that's
there.
fine.
on a
I'm
day.
just curious as to what it was. And then, what were the other ones? There was a change from the last time. What got dropped?
Fourth floor of the library.
Fourth floor of the library.
And the last one, not necessarily in order, but certainly they're all important. The fire station kitchen floor, which was done 8 years ago with a floating floor. I know that some of you guys were there when we did that walkthrough last March. That floor got 10 months worse since then. That room, they use that room 24 hours a day. Everything from meeting to having meetings and so on and so forth. And the floor's worn out. I have pictures of it if you want to see it. Want to see them?
I'm good.
Mr. Fode?
John, we did take that tour last year and looked at some of them, and I agree that the senior center needs to be done, but we had also talked at that time about looking at something else than just another rug, maybe floating floor or something like that.
We did, you're absolutely right, and what we found is that the warranties on the floating floors, they don't come close to what we can get for that kind of floor, and keeping it clean. Keeping the floating floors clean and we're better off using those tiles that I was talking about earlier, even as opposed to using rolled stock carpeting.
But as a opposed to a cleaning issue, I know that's an issue, but I thought even the occupants of the senior center felt that a floating floor would have been better for their needs than a carpeting.
gotta find a practical way to answer that. If you mean the occupants that are the elderly people, that are the seniors who use it, or the staff?
I thought both.
With certain
I can only
activities
say
that
I
been.
did the
Exactly.
research on
Yeah,
it.
with certain activities where they have the dance, or they have,
Right.
you know, a few other things, obviously, the straight flooring rather than carpeting it. Exercise.
And it's easier to push the tables.
Right.
What's that?
It's easier to collapse the tables with one of our.
Slide 'em.
I think you were there with us that night when you and I had that conversation to some extent. What I, at that time, was thinking was the roll stock, which is what's there now. But the more I looked at it, the more I balanced the difference in cost. As I say, it's all 40 square foot. But the advantages to the 3x3 tiles are.
Oh, no, I agree with you. The 3x3 tiles are, in buildings where you're gonna have traffic is the right idea. I think the concern of theirs was not so much, it was not so much rolled carpet to tiles, but more the product.
Yeah,
In other words, they don't want carpeting, they want a floating floor because it allows them to do more of their activities in it.
Yeah, well, what you can say, and I agree, is that the floating floors tend to gouge. You got, I'm gonna say 50 to 75 chairs in that room, and they're scraping the chairs back and forth all the time. Floating floors don't do well. The town hall, for example, where we use floating floors for reasons that have more to do with mud and stuff getting tracked in, we have to put these plastic additions onto the floor so that the chairs, the desk chairs that roll around on casters, if you have these chairs here, like what they have in the senior center, they'd wear the floor out.
Can we split it? Let's create an area for those activities, and again, you can talk with Mrs. Prenny as far as what square footage is needed based upon the activity level for, whether it be, you know, the dance or the exercise. You know, you don't have to do the whole floor carpeting, but a portion of it floating floor, maybe that'd work. We'll just have a little
My
discussion.
understanding, guys, is that the 3x3 tiles for the senior center space as it exists now, that's what I would strongly recommend. There's a lot of other things that the senior center needs by that I mean, yeah, they need a place for their exercise classes and so on and so forth, but they have X many square feet. They sometimes go upstairs for their exercise classes, which is also a carpeted space, but you get into that whole thing about handicap accessible and people being able to get up to the second floor and so on and so forth, and the number of square feet on the first floor, I don't see it working, dividing it up. I mean, you got the library area, the kitchen area. Kitchen is already not a carpeted area, it's a tiled area, linoleum area. So you're getting it broken up too much.
John, you know the price difference in the floating floor to, I mean, to the 3x3 tiles?
Beg pardon?
Do you know the price difference between the floating floor and the 3x3 tiles? Per square
The
foot?
floating floor, hold on. I may. The 3x3 tiles, I already talked about. Hold on a second. I may be able to give you that. The fire station floor, you can do the math. If you wanna help me with that. Fire station floor that we are recommending they engage floating floor. I'm gonna say it's $4.29 a square foot, $4.29 and change a square foot.
It's 429 more a square foot?
No, $4.29 a square foot,
Yeah.
and that's the cost of the material. But the rip up and everything else, taking out the old and putting in the new is gonna be about a wash, so
Right.
it's $4.29 as opposed to $4.65.
So not much of a difference.
Not much.
So can I make a recommendation that maybe you speak to Ms. Prenny first before making a final decision on what you put there and find out what she would?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just hate to put down a rug again, it's not gonna be useful for them. And also, I would tell her your concerns too, that you're concerned that it's not gonna,
The
you
water-
know, float floor wouldn't last, right?
Right, yes.
Can't you just put the floating floor with the existing rug?
I'm sorry?
Can't you put the floating floor with the existing rug, so you'd save the cost of ripping up the rug there? I've done that. Instead of putting,
I
instead of
answered
putting,
that- I answered that once before, and the answer is that that floor is literally 4 to 5 inches thick with layer upon layer upon layer of stuff.
right, but on layer upon layer upon layer, the only thing you'd be taking off is the carpeting.
Understood.
And then you'd put a pad underneath the floating floor.
I think the best way to do it, the right way to do it, is take out the existing carpeting and put in the floating floor. We put that carpeting in, I think it was 7 years ago.
Right, but you're still between the floating, between the existing floor, even if you take the carpeting up, you have to put something between the existing
Right.
floor and the carpeting could act as that. I mean, I've done it before, so I'm just,
Well, with all due respect, sir, the material that goes between the floating floor and the substrate is like a piece of paper. Carpet is thicker than that.
right.
You're gonna change, all the doors have to be trimmed or
Yeah,
whatever.
okay.
It's what I do.
I'm sorry?
It's what I do. It's, I mean,
Oh, I'm not down, I don't think I came across as downing, I was giving you another perspective for it, that's all.
yeah, it's cool.
We purposely word this as change flooring as opposed to tile and rug, so that we have flexibility.
Right.
So that's why the wording is like that.
I just,
That's good. All right, so we're gonna take a look and have a conversation with,
Yeah, we'll talk to Mary. Typically, what we do, so that you all are aware of it, is that we don't go out and just buy carpeting or buy flooring, because what I like to do is interact with department heads and have them have a say in what color they like, or that sort of thing, because no point in us going in and putting gray everywhere or something like that. There's areas that they prefer a different color.
yeah.
you want green and yellow patchwork in here.
I'm just be real quick, I mean, I'm gonna vote for this article, but I am a little disappointed in your priorities. And I really do think that the finance office needs to be redone, where the employees work in the backyard. Do what you want with it. I just want you to know where I stood on that. I am gonna still vote in favor of
I
that.
don't disagree with you. What I had to do was it's limited to $50,000.
You got your priorities from your boss, so that's where it stands.
Well, I'm gonna jump in, Mr. Prisco, right there. I had heard last week that the priority list was different, so I had heard that the wing where the finance department rests would be the wing that's getting the carpet, so I don't know whether it was a miscommunication, but that's what I had heard in a meeting I had with Mr. Valiakonis.
And I spoke before coordinating with John. So I spoke before I talked to him about, because he knows the priorities better than I do. So I spoke.
I can certainly be overruled, too. The point is that we have a sum of money that we have to spend.
Sure. No, I understand.
And where do you get the most for that amount of money is what I was trying to do.
Thank you, you do a nice job.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, we've already recommended the article, but we hadn't recommended the actual source of funding, so I'll recommend that we recommend Article 8 for a sum of $50,000 to come from free cash.
Second.
Motion is second. Finance Committee?
We reached out to the cruising chairman of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. He still supports this. I expect he will do.
Thank you. Okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Article 9, additional funding for town road program.
Recommend that the article be passed over for consideration at the spring town meeting. The purposes, the reason for that recommendation are the fact that there is some fiscal year 2012 monies that have not been spent. Additionally, any monies that are appropriated in October town meeting would be used for spring of 2014 projects, and we believe that those can be adequately addressed as part of the capital improvement plan for June town meeting. And the recommendation would be to defer action on this article.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Misery?
are we still holding out in anticipation of getting some additional Chapter 90 money?
Maybe.
I mean, that's another reason maybe to wait.
Sounds like it's dead based upon the reports that I've had, is that the governor's dug his heels in and said none.
Yes, you're right.
There is
We'll
always a
wish.
possibility. Mr.
No, I did
President?
have discussion with Representative Jones and Senator Tyra. They don't believe we're gonna see any more money than what we're getting.
My understanding there's still FY12 monies available. Do we, is that accurate? Do we have a figure on that?
There was no town road money appropriated in FY12, so I can't. have
Chapter-
that-
Oh, is
Chapter
it
90
90
money.
money? Is Chapter 90 money?
No. I don't believe so.
There was town road.
I don't,
funds
Liz would
that-
have, Liz would have the records.
There's town road funding that was appropriated at last October town meeting of 200,000. And I can tell you the account
That's-
balance of that.
At the wrong year.
Okay. It happened in calendar year 12, just.
Okay. But no, FY13, that was not spent then.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend passing over Article 9.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Finance Committee?
Yeah, it's fine with us.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. I think that leaves Article 13.
What about 10?
Had I missed 10? Okay.
10.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did miss 10, thank you. Article 10, fund town road survey services.
Recommendation would be to fund town road services for $20,000, with the source of funds being free cash, and the road services are what you saw this evening, which is the preparation of acceptance plans for a total of 3 town roads totaling approximately 1.1 miles.
Okay. 3.1 miles? I thought it was.
1.1 miles.
Why do I keep on getting that?
3 roads.
3 roads, okay. That's
thought
the
it was
3
8 to
that.
10.
You heard the 3.
That's the 3 that stuck in my head.
Oh, I thought it was 8 to 10 roads.
It was. What we did was we wanted to see how many we could do and how much mileage we could do for this amount of money. And then the additional roads in the future will be brought back before another town meeting. We'll do it on an incremental basis.
Okay, so it's not 8 to 10 anymore, it's 3 to what?
3 roads, 1.1 miles.
3 to road.
And that gets us anywhere between 10 and 14,000.
Payback of
Annually.
a year and a half.
Yeah.
And we don't know what roads those are, right?
There'll be Adams, Swan Pond Road, and a little part of Elm Street.
Swan Pond Road.
Swan Pond Road from the cul-de-sac where it meets Adams, and Adams from that intersection to where Dogwood starts.
And what was the last one?
Elm Street, when you're driving down Elm Street, there's like a little bus turnaround.
Yeah.
Just
by
before the
Lisa.
Country Club?
That's
Oh,
actually,
yeah, yeah.
that's a town road number, that's that. If you spin the road, snake that, so that's that road.
We already voted to recommend everything, correct?
Yeah, we just didn't know what the, do we say, oh, it was free cash, that's right.
Yeah, we voted for it.
Yeah, we voted for cash. No, we didn't have it.
Okay, that's taken care of. That leaves now, Article 13, appropriate money for purchase of AEDs for municipal buildings.
Recommendation would be $8,000 for free cash.
Which,
14?
13.
13,
Sorry,
$8,000.
And my understanding is FinCom had some concern, well, they had some questions, why wasn't this part of capital?
Just the operating budget.
Or operating budget, I'm sorry. Mr. Valiakonis?
We hadn't thought of it. We hadn't thought of the idea.
Well,
We
we have,
figured-
okay.
We hadn't thought of it.
Hadn't thought of it, but what we have discussed since the end of last week is that, I guess their life expectancy is 5 to 7 years. But the batteries will have to be replaced on a more regular basis, so we'd have to probably allocate operating funds for that particular purpose going forward. Okay?
Do you have flexibility to spend that kind of money within the operating budgets, or do you need line item approval?
We don't have $8,000 sitting in a can. We think it's important. I mean, it's a life-saving issue. If it saves one life, then it's worth the $8,000 that we spend at October town meeting.
But we
That's
didn't
our
think about
recommendation.
it last year.
Nope, we didn't.
Think about it as an oversight, it's something that issue needs to be addressed, so let's address it. So I'll understand going forward.
Bless you. Thank you.
Put the batteries and the replacement as part of the operation.
That's right.
That's all.
The source of funds is what?
Free cash. It's 2 at Town Hall, 1 at DPW, 1 at the library, same plan?
Yes.
Dan, do you think your committee will probably?
We'll discuss it Wednesday.
Okay.
I gotta have something to, be out on a long one.
See that we took fingerprints away, you wanted something, all right. Mr. Misery?
We voted that at the last meeting from free cash, and nothing's changed, so.
Right.
Do we?
need to review.
Mine was available funds.
It said available funds.
Well, You know what, I think you,
Mine says available funds.
yeah, I think you're right, I'm looking at the note I just wrote.
Right, so do you want
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend Article 13 for $8,000 in free cash, AEDs, 2 for the town hall, 1 for library, 1 for DPW.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. That concludes the information. I'm sorry?
14?
Oh. Alan, appreciate
I
it.
want to get out of here too.
Article 14, appropriate funds for management consultant.
Recommendation is to appropriate or transfer from free cash the sum of $10,000, which would be for the purposes of funding a management consultant.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Misery.
have you got proposals from,
I forwarded one to the board today.
Yeah, I haven't had an opportunity to, I saw
I
it
haven't
when it come
looked at
through, I
it.
haven't had an
Was
opportunity.
it MMA?
No, it was
Yeah,
from,
make
it was from
consultants.
MRI,
MRI. Oh, that's right.
and the amount was $5,500
For the first phase.
for the first phase. That's why I'm suggesting that you put in $10,000. I'm expecting a second proposal. I did not receive that as of today.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Misery.
I recommend that we maintain our decision to make this a town meeting. Give us an opportunity to get the rest of the information, and we can have a discussion at our meeting, just prior to town meeting.
Sounds like it.
That works for
Good.
everybody.
When's our next meeting?
Just before
Town
town
meeting.
meeting.
Oh, just before town meeting?
I'll second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion?
I
Mr.
just wanna make
Chris?
sure.
Mr. Ware?
Make sure you have the votes in this, because I'm definitely not voting in favor of this article. I hate to have you go through a lot of work to find out it's gonna get voted up and down. I think you should maybe have a little straw poll to make sure before you send the town administrator out to do any more work.
Well, he provided the proposal, we have to review it. I don't know what
Okay,
else
what the
there is
proposal
for him
says.
to do.
Because more priorities to do with this money than this.
Anyone else wish to weigh in? Any further discussion?
I'm not in favor of spending $10,000 on this type of a review at this particular time. And maybe for different reasons than others. I mean, to me, whatever the, and again, what's being proposed in the email I got, as far as the proposal, is to call it something else other than what we were looking for. But to me, the crux of what, the genesis of all this was, morale issues here around town hall, or within town, with town employees. What's obvious to me may not be obvious to others. I don't think we need to spend $10,000 of the taxpayers' money to come to a conclusion that, whatever I believe the conclusion to be. And I also don't believe we need to spend $10,000 to bolster any conclusions that anybody else might be looking for. I think I don't think we need to spend the money at this particular point in time. It's not a priority with me. I think whatever issues we have as far as morale, I think this board can sufficiently address it, either through, our own behavior and/or directions that we give the administration. I don't think we need any consultants to come in and spend $10,000 to tell us what I believe to be somewhat obvious reasons as to whatever the issue may exist. So I don't see it as a priority.
Mr. Misery?
I guess my feeling is, and I'm the one that brought this up, is it's hard to fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is. Is the problem the working conditions? Is the problem the temperature in the building? Is the problem the attitude of the Board of Selectmen or the town administrator or whatever else might be going on? And I think that it's hard for, depending on what the issue is, it's hard to get to the bottom of it. Have an independent company come in, and I think what I read that was published earlier, to me, maybe off the target, at least in my mind, what we're after. There was a letter to the editor that said, well, why don't we just go talk to the employees? And maybe that's a good suggestion too, but if there's an issue, certain kinds of issues, they're not likely to talk to us about. So, it's been implied that there's some kind of an issue, underlying issue, and I don't think you can fix that kind of a problem without knowing exactly what it is. And many times having an independent individual who is going to keep everybody anonymous can come back and provide information that we won't get otherwise.
Bob summed up the way I feel regarding this issue too. And I've taken the time. I haven't spoken to everyone who works in this building, but I've spoken to a number of people. Some people are just not forthcoming, whether it's a Board of Selectmen member that approaches them or a town administrator approaches them. They may just not be forthcoming because of, if the problem is us, they don't want to say it's us to our face. They won't want to say it to the town administrator to his face, and I can understand that. But to have an independent body come in and conduct the appropriate survey, I think we get to the issue of determining, one, is there an issue? Two, what it is, and three, help us come up with a solution for it. I just haven't had an opportunity to digest the proposal as it came in this afternoon. I think it's still a worthwhile idea to consider. So I'm in favor of just giving a recommendation at town meeting. Mr. Volkman?
If I may, so just as a suggestion, something that I've seen work effectively in the past is that if a volunteer committee of, say, 5 or 7 employees were given some rein to talk to their fellow employees and then make recommendations to the board, that can be quite effective and go a long way toward identifying what the issues might be. People will more readily come and speak to you as a committee than as individuals. Something you might consider. And that could also be the basis for ongoing work.
Right, to see if we do need to go further with it.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, to me, I think a human resources person could develop some sort of a survey and be the collection point individual and report to the board what the findings are. I don't think we need to spend $10,000 to find out whatever it is you're looking to find out. I read the letter to the editor with interest here. You know, I think there's some good suggestions there, and I think there were some interesting observations made by some of the general public. I mean, so I think we could spend $10,000. It could be better spent on other priorities. And I think internally, use our HR director if you're looking to survey the employees, and I'm not just talking about the employees in town hall either. I mean, there are other departments, you know, whether it be DPW, police, fire, you know, who are not physically in the building here, who need to be included in any survey. If the majority of the board decides to move forward and town meeting decides to support it, I think it needs to be, you know, all town employees, not just town hall.
I was assuming it would be all
Okay,
employees.
good.
Great.
The description's a little vague for me, and when you go to talk about it on Wednesday night for the finance committee consideration, I don't really know how to describe it beyond what's written in the warrant article.
Well,
There's some
there's
design around the
there's
town hall.
some members of the board, not all, but I'm one of them, who believes there's an issue here. Not in terms of the work product of our employees.
Not performance.
It has nothing to do with performance-based. It has to do with that feeling when you get up out of bed in the morning. Do you feel like going into a particular building or working in a particular department or a company? Do you feel like you want to run and go there and work every day because of various issues? And it could be, I don't know what my sense is in talking to the people that I've talked to. There is an issue here. Now, whether it's this board, administration, a department head, I don't know. But I'd like to get us to a point where we can identify what the issue is.
Or issues.
Or issues, and correct it so the environment throughout the town, particularly in town hall, is a better place for people to come to work. And I'm getting more of this sense over the last year and a half or so. So that's my perspective on it. And I have taken time to talk to those that are willing to talk when I come in. Like I said, I haven't seen everyone, seen a handful of people. That's the sense that I get. So I don't know if that helps you in terms of going back to
I'll try to, in
finance.
good faith, paraphrase what you said.
But I don't know if that means my fellow board members may think differently or otherwise, but that's the sense I have. Mr. Messeri, I believe you made the recommendation to be consistent with our prior recommendation, we recommended town meeting. That was second, so. Well, I don't think we have to take any action because that was our original vote anyhow. So we recommended town meeting. That concludes the informational hearing for October town meeting articles. I will close the public hearing at this time. I think we have, before we get to town administrator's report, we did have an executive session this evening, and the board took action during the executive session relative to the Pine Forest development by Mr. Petrosino. Mr. Valiakonis, would you like to summarize the action taken by the board of Mr. O'Leary?
You might want to clarify that Mr. Fode was not a participant.
Thank you. Mr. Fode was not a participant in the executive session, as he abstained for any discussion, as he has consistently, as a result of there being a family relationship between he and Mr. Petrosino. Mr. Valiakonis, I'd like you to summarize what occurred in the vote taken by the board.
The board members that were present in executive session, I met with council. The purpose of the meeting was to determine the location of the water line and service, which is going to be for the Pine Forest Park subdivision, which, as we know, was the source of controversy between the developer and the town. What was agreed to, and is a good plan that provides that the water line will be extended along town roadways, Roach Circle and Flash Road. They'll be constructed by the developer, and it will be, the developer is also willing to construct several hundred feet of water main along a section of roadway where there is no water service. The purpose of that will be to improve water quality and fire flows in that area. So those will be not only beneficial to the new subdivision, but those benefits will accrue to any of the residents who are up in that neighborhood. So pleased to see that this settlement was agreed to. It avoids potential litigation down the road, and I think it's the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belliconis. Mr. Prisco?
No, and I just want to note that it was, the actions were taken to make sure that the proper communication is going to happen with all our residents up there in that area. So no work will start until the communication has been completed.
Thank you. Move now to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have been informed that the Department of Revenue has issued preliminary certification on the town's new property values for fiscal year 2014. So the next step is the public disclosure period, which will begin on the 23rd of September. And it's certainly good news again that our evaluation process looks to be complete and needs to be complete for us to set the fiscal year 2014 tax rate. So you will see a notice about public disclosure. It'll be published in the newspaper, and then that will become available effective September 23rd.
Thank you. Mr. Messeri.
Just a comment, I think we should congratulate the assessor and her team for doing a fine job in getting that approved. And a second question is, has there been an increase in new growth as a result of?
I don't have that information yet. I just received notice of the preliminary certification being approved. I don't have an idea at this time in terms of how it translates to potential new growth, but it certainly won't be to the extent that we would have received 3 years ago when we went through the same process. Maybe a small fraction of increase.
Still would like to know what it is.
I don't know. I'll find out for you.
Thank you.
Some other good news, we've been informed that the Commonwealth has agreed to reimburse North Reading for the cost of the senatorial primary and general election, which were held back in April and June. And you recall that we did put in a request, and the state has seen fit to reimburse us $8,826, which will be earmarked for the town's general fund. And I think Mrs. Stats had previously reported this was an unfunded mandate of the Commonwealth, so they've agreed to fund it. But please keep in mind that the April cost was fractional because it was a shared election between the town and the special primary. So we did not receive full reimbursement, nor did we expect that we'd receive full reimbursement for the cost of that election. I'm informed that the Attorney General has approved the medical marijuana bylaw that was approved at June town meeting. So you will be seeing a notice that goes in the newspaper indicating the bylaw has been approved, and will include the full text of what was actually approved at town meeting. And then the last item that I have on my list is in recognition of North Reading's 300th anniversary this year, the Savers Bank has contributed the sum of $2,100 to replace the North Reading sign, which is located in the town common. And I want to thank the bank for its most generous donation, and thank them for monies which will be put to good use. I know that there had been some questions about replacing that sign and making improvements to it, and I'm happy to see that local businesses set forward to assist us. That's it.
We need to vote to accept that?
You do?
We do. Mr. Chairman, I move that we graciously accept the $2,100 from the Savings Bank for the purposes of replacing the Welcome to North Reading sign on the...
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? I thank my colleague, Mr. O'Leary, for bringing it to everyone's attention that it was in disarray down there and needed to be replaced.
Yeah, just Mr. McCoolbree, who's the president, happened to read it in the transcript, and
there he is. Thank you, Mr. Torres, too.
contacted the administration, and offered to, first of all, said, find out how much it is, and then offered to take care of it.
That's
So,
terrific.
thank Mr. Brian McCoubry and directors at the Savings Bank in Wakefield. Again, they have a branch in Washington Street. Good corporate citizens. And again, in recognition of our 300th birthday. So.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Is that all, Mr. Valley-Jones?
That's it.
Thank you. Old and new business, Mr. O'Leary.
All set.
All set. Mr. Fode?
Just a couple of things. Want to remind everybody that Sunday, October 6th is the Commissioners' Cup, the golf tournament sponsored by the Land Utilization Committee at the Hillview. Also, I don't want to steal this from Mike, we may bring it up also, that the LUC and Hillview Commission are working on a celebration for the Hillview's 25th anniversary. On October 20th, they're going to do a family fun day from 1 to 4 p.m., so I would keep an eye out for that. Should be fun. I also just want to give my condolences to the 12 victims of the Washington Navy Yard massacre. To them and their families, it's a sad thing that happened today, and hopefully, they'll get through it, and I wish them the best. Lastly, Greg, CIPC, I understand there's 2 new members from the schools that were
Yes.
appointed, and do we need to approve their?
Yes, I indicated that it'll come up to the board at its meeting on the 7th of October. And it would be Mr. Connolly, who is the new business manager, and Ms. Imbriano, who is a member of the school committee.
Great, thank
So
you.
we'll put it on the agenda for the 7th.
That's it for me, thank you.
Mr. Messeri?
Just based on what the board asked at our last meeting, we've arranged a meeting with the Sciolis and the Nelsons for tomorrow evening at 7. Mr. Fode and I attending, and most graciously happy that they've agreed to sit down with us. And we're going to talk about the issues at hand and see if we can't convince them to hold off on the appeals. Get us, what do they call it, an extension, Steve?
It's a continuation.
Continuation, that was the word I'm thinking of. So, see how that goes. We'll have some information. I've asked Sean to pull together for the meeting tomorrow night.
And the ZBA meets on
Thursday night, yeah. So, we're down to the deadline.
Thank you for taking the time and the effort of pulling that together. I hope it's successful.
Other than that, I think I'm all set.
Thank you. Mr. Briscoe?
Couple things. I attended the 4th annual dinner social last night to honor our veterans. Wonderful that Town Representative Jones were able to attend, and many other guests. It was pretty good. I think it was well over 125 people there. But Susan did an outstanding job. It was well organized. Everybody had a great time. But the presentation of the colors and a few other things that she had in her agenda were, there was a presentation that was given by the Lynn English Marine Corps Junior ROTC drill team. It was amazing. These kids were just absolutely amazing. If you have an opportunity to see them, they are traveling all around the Commonwealth. If you have an opportunity to see these kids perform, they're high school kids. They did a fantastic job, but they did a ceremony in the beginning. I'm not sure, Mr. Torres, if you were there for the ceremony. It wasn't a dry eye in the place. So, next year I really would highly recommend board members to try to make. I know it's a Sunday. I know they're difficult to get there, but it'd be good if we could have a little more representation. It's a worthy event for you guys to participate. But I really want to pass along through the town administrator. Sincere congratulations to Susan for pulling off another fantastic event. It was a huge success. And then just to remind people that next October 7th is our town meeting, and October town meeting is very important, and I really hope we have a full house. So I'd like us to take, even as individual board members, to take on getting the word out, and hopefully through news and announcements and any other means we can to stimulate as much participation in that meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Prisco, I too wish to congratulate our veterans agent. But for family commitment, I would have attended yesterday. Just the only other item, whoever's watching or maybe reading, as I know Mr. Churros will probably write this in the paper, Hillview Golf Course, which is probably our crown jewel, probably one of the best decisions made by this community 20-plus years ago, has suffered a lot of vandalism and destruction by youths in this town over the course of the summer. Ball washers have been taken, fences have been destroyed, railings. As of yesterday, I took my son up there for a lesson, and the railing that leads from the parking lot down to the driving range was ripped out of its footing. It's just amazing what some youths may do, thinking it's fun, but someone has to pay for that. We pay for that, to repair that. And funds from the Hillview have gone to support a lot of causes that support the youth in this community. So if you're out there, if you're a parent and you think your kid may be doing it, or you suspect that a neighbor may be doing it, you may want to talk to them before the police get a hold of them, tell them to knock it off, because it's disgusting, quite frankly. And that's all I have this evening. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. A motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.